Chapter 1482. In the Western Desert Impasse, Yi Qinghan dismissed 10 peerless master pros from the crazy sect. Lin Wutian, Gu Qingyu, Jiang Jingtian, Li Feng, Shi Gu, Xian Yanxue, Mu Zhuang, the Celestial Sword Body, Desolate Lord Yi, and Xia Ziluo. These 10 were the strongest and most trustworthy. They were scattered around Yi Qinghan within 10,000 li to 100,000 li. Their goal was to take the Great Wasteland Steel away after Yi Qinghan died. The others returned to the Great Wasteland Steel and were led by Yi Qinghan deeper into the steel. In the western desert forest, terrifying beasts appeared from time to time, smashing mountains and rivers as they attacked human experts. Clearly, Yi Qinghan's group wasn't the only one here. There were many powerful adventurers who had never appeared before, but they were still here. The weakest of them was a peak paramount god. Although there weren't many of them, their battle prowess was terrifying. Most of them were from the 7 realms, and some were even natives. They were born and raised in the western desert and didn't care about the outside world. Yi Qinghan quietly moved forward, judging by their clothing. As long as they were from the 7 realms, he would ambush and kill them. If they were too strong, he would quietly retreat. The danger was so great that it was hard to breathe. Even the experts of the western desert could feel an indescribable aura enveloping the western desert, as if something big was about to happen. Outside the western desert, in the great wastelands, revered god Wu Ji, Shui Wudi, and the 6 demons and devil sovereigns, 3 sector lords, headed towards the western desert forest while the remaining 4 sector lords headed towards the void ocean in the east. No one knew where Yi Qinghan had gone. At the same time, in the distant ocean of nothingness, Yi Qinghan was being carried away by his elite guards. They were desperately trying to escape from the sea dragon weave, but they were getting further and further away from the great wastelands. They had already reached the territory of the heaven-protecting Qilin in the north. No one had ever seen a heaven-protecting Qilin before. Not even its bloodline had appeared. Many people doubted its existence. When Yi Qinghan stepped into the northern frontier sea, he took a deep breath. He knew that he had dodged a calamity this time. He could now cultivate in peace and recover from his injuries. Xian, find a deserted island where we can stay. I urgently need to rest. Yi Qinghan's face was a little pale. His heart was beating very abnormally, as if he had sensed something. The main body and avatar were too far apart. Yi Qinghan could not sense what was happening to the main body, but he could foresee that something was wrong. Otherwise, his heart would not be beating so fast. The elite guard turned to look at Yi Qinghan's pale face and pulled Yi Qinghan along. Their figures flashed and teleported 10,000 miles away. Their divine senses spread out to search for the island. The northern sea region was extremely vast, but there were very few islands. Although this place was close to the sea, it was still very far from the polar regions. The creatures here were still quite docile, and very few of them would take the initiative to pounce on the 2 people in the sky. Screech! The elite guard transformed into an elite divine bird. He spread his wings and soared high. His eyes were sharp as he looked around. The light in his eyes was especially sharp as he searched for prey. Yi Qinghan sat on the back of the elite divine bird. His eyes shone brightly. After searching for an entire day, he finally found an island suitable for humans to live on. It was not very big, about 200 meters in radius. There were a few ancient trees on it that covered the sky. It was a natural house. Seabirds landed on the ancient trees and built nests one after another. Whoosh! The elite guard swooped down and transformed back into a human before landing. He brought Yi Qinghan to the ground. Father, wait a moment. I will help you build a house. The elite guard hurriedly rushed into the forest and looked at the thick ancient trees. They were about 10 feet in diameter. There was an ancient tree that actually had a tree hole. It looked natural. It was pitch black inside and nothing could be seen. There should be creatures inside. Yi Qinghan was very experienced in surviving in the wild. He saw the tree hole in one glance. He flicked his finger and a wisp of flame rushed into the tree hole. Roar! After a miserable shriek, a huge python crawled out of the huge hole in the tree. It had a golden head and silver-white scales. It was at least 30 meters long and thicker than a bucket. Its abdomen began to crack, as if it was about to grow claws. It was likely that it would soon transform into a dragon. The angry giant python stared at Yi Qinghan and the elite guard. However, it had cultivated to such a level and was very intelligent. It knew that it was not a match for the elite guard. However, it did not retreat. It opened its bloody mouth and kept closing in on the two of them, indicating that this was its territory. Yi Qinghan stared at the giant python. His aura kept increasing. He borrowed the power of the world and waved his hand to control the void ocean nearby. Huge waves rushed to the sky, wanting to swallow the island. His aura shot up to the clouds. Under the influence of his aura, his stalwart body became like a king descending to the world. It was extremely terrifying. Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice, "I am only staying here temporarily. I will leave after healing. If you want to transform into a dragon in peace, you better behave. Otherwise, I will take you in." Hiss hiss hiss. The giant python looked at Yi Qinghan in shock. It gradually retreated into the inner part of the island, not daring to resist. Yi Qinghan knew how to make do. He did not even care about the giant python. After all, he had the elite guard by his side. He directly sat cross-legged under the tree and cultivated. At this moment, the four supreme masters had already appeared in the void ocean. They knew that the sea race's continent was within the sea dragon weave. Their goal was clear. The four of them flew through the sky and the sea, traveling through the void ocean. It took them 3 whole months to reach the periphery of the sea race's continent. Divine Lord Jingtian directly grabbed a shape-shifting expert and forcefully ordered, "Speak. Have there been any human experts here recently?" Recently, Yi Qinghan's matter had caused an uproar. He had offended the 9 supreme masters of the sea race. Who did not know about this? That shape-shifting expert did not dare to go against the supreme master's will. He hurriedly explained the matter. The eyes of the 4 supreme masters lit up. According to what this shape-shifting expert said, that human expert was indeed terrifying. It was possible that he was the person they were looking for. Divine Lord Jingtian forcefully devoured the shape-shifting expert's memories. He knew that Yi Qinghan had fled towards the north. He exchanged glances with the other experts and said, "Let's go. We'll talk after we find that human." It was just a coincidence. They wanted to find the main body, but they found the location of the clone first. Shio that the 4 supreme masters rushed towards the north. At this moment, the 9 supreme masters of the sea race were gathering all their forces to hunt down Yi Qinghan. They all wanted to take back the Dragon Ball. The Dragon Ball was extremely important to their race's evolution. No one wanted to give it up. Deep-sea crazed shark led a large group of experts through the fog ocean. The fur seal had obviously betrayed Yi Qinghan. In its eyes, there was no such thing as brotherly love. If not for the fact that it was worried that Yi Qinghan would be injured, it would have already killed him and devoured his blood essence. Less than half a year after the 9 supreme masters left, the 4 supreme masters appeared in the fog ocean. The fur seal discovered that the 4 supreme masters were all at the realm master level. It could not resist them and did not even dare to release the fog. It cursed in the depths of the ocean. Damn, why are there so many experts recently? The fog ocean was a place where one could enter but not leave. But now, this rule had been broken. One after another, experts were ignoring the fog ocean. North of the sea dragon weave was the sky-protecting Qilin weave. Although this was how it was divided, very few members of the sea race paid attention to it. This was because the sky-protecting Qilin had never appeared before. Even the sea race themselves suspected that such creatures did not exist. Deep-sea crazed shark and the other 8 supreme masters looked at each other and rushed towards the northern region without hesitation. Huge waves surged, rolling and surging. However, before they could chase for long, the 4 supreme masters had already appeared above them. They blocked their path and stared at each other coldly. Although Shark Crazed was arrogant, he did not dare to be arrogant in front of a realm master. After all, those were heavenly beasts. Greetings, Lord Supreme Masters. Shark Crazed immediately bowed and turned back into his human form. His cold face was now very docile. Chapter 1483. No matter how arrogant Sha Kuang was, he would still be as docile as a kitten in front of a Paragon Realm Lord. Moreover, there were 4 Paragon Realm Lords in front of him. If he dared to be arrogant, the 9 great clans would be exterminated. The other oceanic race experts also submitted. They didn't dare to raise their heads to look at the 4 Paragon Realm Lords. Divine Lord Jingtian silently looked at the patriarchs of the 9 great clans. They were all Paragon Realm experts. However, Paragon Realm experts were also divided into different levels. They belonged to the weakest category. No matter if it was speed or strength, they couldn't be compared to Ling Yen. Even the patriarch of the Sea Dragon race couldn't compare to Ling Yen. At most, he was slightly stronger than Huang Peng. Where are the 2 humans? Divine Lord Jingtian asked coldly. Sha Kuang didn't dare to go against the will of the Paragon Realm Lord. He quickly bowed and replying to Lord Paragon, the 2 humans fled into the northern border Sky Qilin Sea region. We have just arrived here. Do you want to kill them? Divine Lord Jingtian looked down and asked. Sha Kuang didn't understand why the 4 Paragon Realm Lords were looking for Yi Qinghan. He didn't dare to speak rashly for fear of offending the 4. Paragon Divine Marshal, Wuxian Paragon, and the Night Demon Deity King were incomparably cold. They didn't speak, but their powerful aura suppressed the experts of the 9 great clans. As per Lord Paragon's orders. Sha Kuang said helplessly. Divine Lord Jingtian's eyes flashed. With the help of the oceanic race, the search would be much faster. He nodded and said, help me find the 2 of them. Regardless of life or death, I will reward you. Many thanks, Lord. Sha Kuang was immediately overjoyed. Seeing Divine Lord Jingtian's attitude, he knew that they weren't from the same faction. They were enemies. It seemed like there was still a chance for him to obtain the Dragon Pearl. A large number of sea beasts charged towards the northern border. The huge waves almost raised half of the ocean. The waves were terrifying. The impact of the waves was enough to crush a Paragon God expert. Only sea beasts that were used to the ocean of nothingness could survive. At this moment, Yi Qinghan had already been bitterly cultivating on the island for more than a month. His injuries were completely healed. His complexion had recovered. However, the sense of urgency was getting stronger. His heart was pounding as though he could feel that death was approaching. Xian, help me set up a 30,000-kilometer perimeter. Once there's any sign of an enemy, come back and inform me immediately. There's no way to defend. Yi Qinghan gazed at the elite guard. Looking at her immature face, he really couldn't bear to drag her into the battlefield. However, there was no other way now. If he didn't break through, she wouldn't even have the chance to escape. The elite guard nodded and left. Yi Qinghan closed his eyes without hesitation and mobilized the giant blood cells in his body. The energy contained within the giant blood cells was far greater than that of a human's. The energy contained within each cell was 1,000 times that of a normal human's. Boom! Boom! The giant blood surged and roared in his blood vessels. Blue veins bulged all over his body and his body involuntarily enlarged. He took on the appearance of the giant blood race. Countless blood cells revolved at the same time, absorbing the primal strength above the void ocean to form giant vortexes. Whoosh! The seawater was twisting, and cracks appeared in the sky. Strange phenomena appeared in the world, and the wails of 10,000 daos were incessant. A massive amount of energy entered Yi Qinghan's body, but it didn't even cause the slightest ripple, much less cause a breakthrough. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan took out all the world stones and origin sacred stones from his Qian Kun ring. When the origin sacred stones were fully saturated, all the sacred stones and world stones floated into the air and attached themselves to him. The energy inside poured out and rushed into the giant blood cells. His limbs and bones were filled with divine power. One world stone was absorbed, and the second one quickly turned into dust. Yi Qinghan's speed of absorbing the world energy within the world stones became faster and faster. However, he was like a bottomless pit. Originally, he needed countless resources to break through. Now that he had become a giant blood race member, the energy within his body had already reached the middle stage of pseudo-sector lord. However, after an incense's time, hundreds of world stones had been devoured and turned into dust. The energy within his body was nearing the pinnacle of pseudo-sector lord realm. However, even after reaching such a realm, he still hadn't broken through. Boom! 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 Yi Qinghan's world stones surged. His body was incomparably sturdy, just like a saturated primal sacred stone. How can this be? I still can't break through. What's wrong with this damn giant blood race member? Yi Qinghan was extremely shocked. With such strength, even the great desolate Dao body back then should have broken through. The world stones were circulating in his body. It had already reached the perfect realm, but he still couldn't break through to the middle stage of pseudo-sector lord realm. This was simply unimaginable. Now, he was sure that once he broke through, he would be able to instantly kill high-stage pseudo-sector lords. If he used the stone sword world treasure, he would be able to instantly kill peak pseudo-sector lords. Boom! In a moment of desperation, Yi Qinghan directly absorbed the saturated primal sacred stone's primal energy. After it entered his body, it automatically turned into world stones. However, at this moment, countless giant blood cells in his body began to circulate at the same time, crazily absorbing the primal sacred stone's primal energy. The impact was so strong that his meridians were about to explode. Every cell was absorbing the energy. His body was torn apart, but it quickly recovered. The surface of his body was dyed red with blood. The energy was restless. If he wasn't careful, he would explode. Yi Qinghan's pupils constricted. He clenched his fists tightly. His sector lord soul was revolving to the peak. He carefully controlled every cell and blood vessel. With the slightest change, the energy within the cells and blood vessels would be drawn out to refine his body. At this moment, he had completely transformed into a giant blood race member. His long hair was dragging on the ground. His bones were crushed and then reformed. The saturated primal sacred stone's energy was equivalent to a peak pseudo-sector lord. However, at this moment, it was being rapidly absorbed by Yi Qinghan. Once it was done, he would break through. He would be a peak existence, even if his realm wasn't high-stage pseudo-sector lord yet. Boom! Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness was clear. He was completely in a state of enlightenment. Every vein and blood vessel in his body was under his control. He didn't care about anything in the outside world. He didn't have the energy to care. The entire void ocean seemed to be restless. The sea level was rapidly rising. It was as though a huge beast was charging out from the bottom of the ocean. A terrifying pressure enveloped the northern border and continued to spread outwards. Outside the northern border, God Lord Jingtian and the rest had a huge change in expression as they looked towards the depths. What kind of living being's aura is this? So tyrannical. Supreme Divine Marshal asked in shock. It doesn't seem like a human from the nine-world sky. However, it has the aura of a human. God Lord Jing Tian quickly replied. At this moment, the 9 great ocean clans were all frightened. The weak living beings fled far away. They didn't dare to go any further. The waves in the depths swept their huge bodies towards the south. They didn't have any room to resist. Let's go and take a look. Supreme Wuxian took the lead and rushed towards the north. Yi Qinghan's energy ripple was equivalent to Ling Yan's. Perhaps it was slightly stronger, but it wasn't a threat to a sector lord. Xiu. The 4 great supremes gave up on the 9 great ocean clans behind them. They stepped on the waves and sped towards the opposite direction. Their world weapons were already in their hands. Their aura suppressed the waves and gradually calmed them down. The elite guards noticed that the 4 great experts were rapidly approaching. They immediately retreated towards the island. However, Yi Qinghan was currently at the crucial moment of his breakthrough. They couldn't disturb him. Yi Qinghan mobilized the vast energy in his body and quickly broke through the pseudo-sector Lord middle stage bottleneck. He used the fury of thunder to shatter the high stage realm. He forcefully stabilized his realm and began to attack the pinnacle stage. However, it was already too late. The 4 powerful and familiar auras had already appeared within 100,000 li. This bit of distance was nothing to a sector lord. Chapter 1484. 100,000 miles away, Yi Qinghan started to break out in cold sweat. If he didn't break through to the peak, it would be hard for him to escape from the hands of the 4 supreme beings. Gotcha! Yi Qinghan gritted his teeth and crossed his arms. He mobilized every single pore in his body. The remaining divine medicine and several hundred kilograms of origin sacred stone were all sucked into his body. The saturated origin sacred stone was sucked dry in an instant and turned into dust. Rumble. Yi Qinghan was going all out. His world force was vast and mighty, and his primordial energy tore apart the monstrous waves that rushed into the clouds. Whing! A loud explosion could be heard in the sky like it was about to shatter. Roar! Yi Qinghan opened his eyes and stood up. His black hair fluttered in the wind. It was even sharper than a divine weapon as it pierced backwards. His divine robe fluttered in the wind. The world energy in his body had exceeded saturation. If he did not break through, he would die. The intense pain made him roar. His body suddenly grew taller like a giant. The stone sword rushed out from the imprint above his head and spun at high speed to help him break through. Rumble. The blood in his body was like 10,000 horses galloping. It was the final rush. His strong body was crushed and bathed in blood. The vigorous blood energy spread. The waves slammed onto the island and almost pulled it out. Hua. The divine medicine and origin sacred stone turned into dust. All the energy was sucked dry by him. His ability to extract spiritual energy was comparable to a sector lord. His instantaneous explosive power was probably not weaker than a sector lord. Along with the soul of a sector lord, he had already surpassed Ling Yan. However, the world energy in his body was still weaker than a sector lord. Rumble. The peak fake sector lord realm bottleneck was broken. Yi Qinghan's soul instantly became much clearer. His control of the world and world energy had reached a peak. He had broken through himself. The current him was equivalent to 10% of his previous strength. He could definitely not lose against a sector lord, but he couldn't win either. Yi Qinghan still had a lot of energy left in his body that he hadn't been able to use. His body flickered as he viciously stomped his foot on the island. The entire island was crushed and split into 2, revealing a deep abyss. Gurgle, the blood in his body felt like it was burning and boiling. At this moment, he had no relationship with the Great Desolation Warlord. He was purely an expert from the giant blood race. His huge eyes pierced through the void and stared at the four world overlords rushing over. They couldn't recognize him, but he could recognize them. Swish! Yi Qinghan stretched out his hand, and a huge stone sword appeared in his hand. He did not show any signs of fear, and stepped in front of the elite guards, blocking the crowd. His body began to distort, and returned to a height of 10 feet. However, he was still much taller than a human. His black hair draped down to his ankles, as if he had been in seclusion for 1,000 years. His eyes were filled with an ancient charm, making it impossible for others to see through him. He was an eternal mystery. Divine Lord Jing Tian was also stunned. He had never seen such a race before. It was actually so powerful. From Yi Qinghan's eyes, he could actually see the aura of death. Without a doubt, if he fought one-on-one, he might really die if he was careless. Yi Qinghan didn't show any hostility. If they really recognized him, he could only fight. If he couldn't win, he could still escape. However, the gap between their realms was too big. It was already not bad if he could fight one of them to a draw. This was also because he had the soul of a world overlord, the support of the feather spirit robe, and the energy of the giant blood race. With these three advantages, he could be on par with a world overlord. If it was in the past, he wouldn't be able to do this. Why have you all barged into my seclusion grounds? Yi Qinghan squinted his eyes and asked coldly. Divine Lord Jing Tian and the others stared at Yi Qinghan from 1,000 miles away. They realized that he had no relationship with the Great Desolation Warlord. However, this race also shocked them. They had never seen it before, but it was unprecedentedly powerful. Who are you? Although the 9 worlds heavens is vast, there isn't a race that this old man hasn't seen before. You are an exception. Supreme Divine Marshal asked in a domineering manner. Although Yi Qinghan was powerful now, he wasn't afraid. However, if he knew that the person in front of him was the Great Desolation Warlord, his reaction would definitely be different. This was a psychological effect. Yi Qinghan clenched the stone sword tightly. Sword chi soared into the sky, stirring up sand and dust. Even the ocean of void in front of him was separated by the sword chi. His aura continued to rise. Yi Qinghan's eyes were filled with battle intent. He wanted to know if his current strength was enough to resist a world overlord. However, it wasn't just one world overlord in front of him. There were 4 of them. He had no choice but to suppress the surging emotions in his heart. However, his arrogance couldn't be erased. The 4 experts looked at the cold and arrogant Yi Qinghan. A trace of killing intent flashed in their eyes. They naturally didn't want an existence that could stand shoulder to shoulder with them in this world. Regardless of whether he was Yi Qinghan or not, they had to kill him. The 5 of them looked at each other in silence. At this moment, Jing Wei seemed exceptionally weak. Although she was strong, she still couldn't stand shoulder to shoulder with a world overlord. A difference of a millimeter would lead to a difference of 1,000 miles. She might be able to escape the pursuit of a world overlord, but it was impossible for her to fight against a world overlord. Father. Jing Wei didn't know what to do. She knew that if she stayed here, she would be a burden to Yi Qinghan. However, she didn't want to abandon her father and escape by herself. Yi Qinghan didn't even turn his head. He said in a low voice, "Continue flying north. I will find you." Roar. Yi Qinghan gradually raised the stone sword. The sword chi on the stone sword soared into the sky, tearing apart the atmosphere and suppressing the ocean of void. He was suppressing the 4 world overlords with his aura alone, hoping to give Jing Wei a chance to escape. Jing Wei left without hesitation. She knew that if she stayed here, Yi Qinghan wouldn't be able to escape. The 4 supreme experts were only distracted for a moment. Jing Wei pierced through the clouds and rushed towards the north. Her figure flashed and disappeared. Divine Lord Jingtian frowned as he stared at Yi Qinghan. He didn't care about Jing Wei. She was just a little girl. How should I address you? Divine Lord Jingtian asked seriously. Just call me Boulder. Yi Qinghan took a small step back. He secretly wondered why the four of them would appear here. Could it be that his main body was exposed? Were they chasing after his main body? As expected, Divine Lord Jingtian retracted his hostility and asked indifferently, Dao friend Boulder, have you seen any humans in the ocean of void? Yi Qinghan now knew that his guess was most likely correct. They were chasing after his main body, while the other three world overlords had probably gone to the western desert treacherous lands. I have seen him. I've seen him before. He's about 7 feet tall and looks very delicate. He's also very powerful. He looks to be around 30 years old and gives off the feeling of an emperor. However, he's too domineering. The moment he saw me, he wanted to snatch my stone sword. I've already beaten him back. Yi Qinghan described his appearance back then and purposely led him on. Divine Lord Jingtian and the others were shocked. They looked at each other with fear in their eyes. Where did he go? How high is his cultivation? Night Demon God King asked sharply. Yi Qinghan looked displeased. It was unknown whether he was displeased because the Desolate Master had snatched his stone sword or because of the Night Demon God King's impoliteness. However, he still snorted and said, his cultivation is close to the World Overlord realm. He should be around the same level as you. After fighting with me a few times, he didn't seem to want to reveal too much. In the end, he had no choice but to retreat and head northeast. Divine Lord Jingtian looked northeast and then stared at Yi Qinghan. Just as he was about to attack and kill him in the cradle, he was stopped by Supreme Divine Marshal. Supreme Divine Marshal shook his head and transmitted, it would be a pity to kill him now. Why don't we use him and the Desolate Master to mutually injure each other? We can be the fishermen. Supreme Divine Marshal was a sly old fox. After careful consideration, he decided to leave Yi Qinghan alive. Divine Lord Jingtian felt that it made sense and retracted his killing intent. However, he didn't know that Yi Qinghan had already seen through their intentions. The enemy didn't know the Lord, but the Lord knew the enemy. Chapter 1485. Supreme Divine Marshal wanted to use Yi Qinghan, but Yi Qinghan didn't want to be rash. He wanted to separate the 7 realm lords and kill them one by one. Both sides didn't want to fight, so they decided to work together. Dao friend Boulder, why don't we work together and find that young human? You can vent your anger and we can collect his corpse. How about it? Supreme Divine Marshal suggested with a smile. Yi Qinghan said quietly, I'm not familiar with him, so I won't work together. Besides, I'm worried about my daughter wandering outside alone. Everyone, if you don't want to be my enemy, then we can consider today's acquaintance. The next time we meet, we might be able to talk about working together. Which of the 4 paragons wasn't an old monster that had lived for countless years? If they didn't have the ability to endure, they wouldn't have reached where they were today. At this moment, it seemed like there was no other way but to compromise. After all, the Desolate Lord was their true enemy. If we offend Boulder now, it's fine if we kill him. If we can't kill him and he escapes, he might be forced to work with the Desolate Lord. That wouldn't be good. Supreme Divine Marshal signaled the other 3 with his eyes and secretly transmitted. Can he escape from our encirclement? Night Demon God King said proudly and disdainfully. Even if he can't escape, we'll waste time killing him. We might even be injured. Wouldn't that give the Desolate Lord a chance to escape? Since that's the case, why don't we keep him alive? Maybe we can use him to deal with the Desolate Lord in the future. Supreme Divine Marshal was firm on his stance. He wasn't willing to kill Yi Qinghan. The four paragons had different opinions, but righteous Heaven Divine Lord and Supreme Wuxian were quickly convinced. Only Night Demon God King couldn't do anything alone and had to give up. Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently. Was there anyone who understood these four better than him? Let's see who's using who. I'll separate you all one by one and dismember you. Yi Qinghan clenched his stone sword and clasped his fists. Everyone, my daughter is still young. It's very dangerous for her to be in the void ocean. I'll leave first. With that, Yi Qinghan took a few steps back. His figure flashed as he rushed towards the north. The void ocean. Time and space were distorted, and a great chasm appeared on the ocean of void. The waves were split into two, and an extreme shadow disappeared in the blink of an eye. The elite guards didn't run too far away. Their eyes were looking behind them, afraid that Yi Qinghan would meet with mishap and they could return to rescue him. When they saw Yi Qinghan appear, their faces were full of smiles. They had already acknowledged this father in their hearts. Now, it seemed that Yi Qinghan wasn't a coward who was afraid of death. The first time he threatened the fur seals, he was prepared to use his life to buy time for himself. This time, it was the same. The greatness of a father's love would always be to use his life to protect his children. Yi Qinghan looked at Jing Wei's pure smile, and his heart was also in turmoil. She was the continuation of him and Bai Zhe. Time and space could not make her feel unfamiliar. Let's go. We'll take a detour back to the Nine Realms, Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. The Jing Wei nodded and advanced side by side with Yi Qinghan, shuttling through the ocean of nothingness. Father, are they looking for you? Jing Wei asked doubtfully. Yi Qinghan nodded and replied, yes, it should be because the Realm Lord came out of seclusion and discovered that the survivors of the great wilderness in the great desolate prison were rescued. As for whether anything else happened, we'll have to wait until we return to the Nine Realms to know. At this moment, Yi Qinghan naturally didn't know that the original body had already killed Ling Yan. Otherwise, Xue Wudi wouldn't be so sure that the desolate lord had returned. At this moment, the original body was too far away from the doppelganger and couldn't sense the soul of the original body. He was very worried about the original body because the group of brothers were all inside the Great Wastelands Monument. If the original body was killed, the Great Wastelands Monument would be lost, and the group of brothers would also die. Their desire to return was very urgent. The two's speed was at the peak of perfection, not losing to the Realm Lord. At this moment, the four supreme experts were chasing towards the northeast. However, they didn't know that this was just Yi Qinghan's bait. There was nothing in the northeast. Even if they were to die, they wouldn't be able to find Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan led the elite guards and rushed towards the northwest. The distance between the two parties was getting further and further. The vast sea stretched as far as the eye could see. The sea surface was blue, and it was impossible to see what was in the depths. The sea surface was rippling, and there wasn't even a place to land. Not to mention an island, there wasn't even a reef. After flying for an unknown period of time, an island finally appeared in front of them. A series of islands appeared, and there was definitely a continental shelf nearby. Even if the surface area was very small, it was enough for humans to survive. Shua. The Realm Lord's divine sense covered 10,000 li, and he continued to rush towards the depths. As expected, a huge sea and land appeared in his divine sense. The sea and land were all forests, and there weren't many tall mountains. It was a flat land with very few living creatures. Occasionally, a huge sea beast would pass by to rest. After that, it would rush into the sea and disappear without a trace. The tall Yi Qinghan led the elite guards and appeared on the sea and land. He slowly determined the direction. According to his memories, if they rushed towards the southwest, they would be able to return to the sea dragon weave. The two rested for about 3 days, and Yi Qinghan stabilized his realm at the peak of the pseudo-realm Lord realm. He absorbed countless spirit chi and turned it all into world power. When his body reached a saturated state, he led the elite guards and set off again, rushing towards the sea dragon weave. At this moment, in the Western Desert Impasse, the three Supreme Being powerhouses joined forces to search for traces of Yi Qinghan's true body. The three Supreme Beings released their divine senses and swept through the Western Desert Impasse from 30,000 miles away. After 3 years, they finally found where Ling Yan died. The valley was in a mess, and the mountain range was flattened. Ling Yan's aura was still fluctuating nearby. He was too powerful, and even though he had died for 3 years, his aura could still remain in the world. Xue Wudi looked at the sword aura around him, and there were sword scars everywhere. The only thing missing was the desolate god's aura, and he couldn't help but frown. Looking at the situation here, Ling Yan didn't seem to have been killed by the desolate god alone. Look, they have many types of weapons, and they are all pseudo-world weapons. This is unbelievable. None of us can have so many pseudo-world weapons. Revered Hierarch Wu Ji looked at the scars around him and said seriously. Who could have such a large force? Xue Wudi asked with a frown. The three of them were silent. The desolate god, who had disappeared for countless years, had reappeared with so many experts. It wouldn't be easy to deal with him. The desolate god must have used another identity to appear in the 9 worlds heavens. He must have developed for many years to gather so many forces. Only he has the ability to cultivate so many experts. Huang Peng can't do that. With such a force and a large number of pseudo-world weapons, I am almost certain that he is Zhuo Feng, the one who started the war in the 9 worlds heavens a few years ago. Xue Wudi pondered for a while and quickly deduced Yi Qinghan's identity. Zhuo Feng being the desolate god could explain many things. For example, why did Zhuo Feng start the war in the 9 worlds heavens? Why did Zhuo Feng suddenly disappear from everyone's sight when he was at his peak? He chose to fake his death. Chase. We can't give him a chance. Xue Wudi stared into the depths and gritted his teeth. Chapter 1486. In the Western Desert, forests covered the sky and covered the earth. The three great experts had summoned their most capable helpers. Most of them were experts at the level of supreme gods and pseudo-realm lords. The terrifying existences of the past had all come out of seclusion. The Western Desert became lively again. The native creatures were disgusted. Their killing intent soared to the sky. Yi Qinghan kept the experts of the insane sect and the older generation of the chaos world into the great wasteland steel. Although they were strong, the more they were exposed, the more dangerous it would be. Only 3 people were left outside. Lin Wuxian, Gu Qingyu, and Jiang Jingtian. The cultivation and survival skills of these 3 were far superior to others. Yi Qinghan took Lin Wuxian with him. Gu Qingyu and Jiang Jingtian had already separated. In a canyon, there were mountains and ravines. It was incomparably dangerous. A bird was flying through the air. 2 figures appeared in the valley. They were Yi Qinghan and Lin Wuxian. Lin Wuxian's childishness hadn't disappeared. Looking at him now, he still looked the same as before. He was very determined and persistent. He dared to take the test of the insane sect with a small wooden sword. He didn't care about others' opinions or the ridicule of his companions. Yi Qinghan liked Lin Wuxian from the bottom of his heart. Such a child didn't have any shortcomings. Lin Wuxian respected Yi Qinghan the most from the bottom of his heart, even more than his own master, Gu Qingyu. If he could, he wouldn't hesitate to sacrifice his life for Yi Qinghan to give him a chance to escape. Yi Qinghan had been running for half a year. He finally found a place to sit down. He looked at Lin Wuxian and continued to teach him, continue to practice the flowing water sword I taught you. If there's anything you don't understand, ask me. Obviously, Yi Qinghan didn't let Lin Wuxian stay to help him. He wanted to pass down the flowing water sword. It was Xiao Renwang's life's work. Although it wasn't a secret technique of the Realm Lord, as long as Lin Wuqian had the opportunity, it could definitely become a Realm Lord. Along the way, Lin Wuqian had been either running for his life or cultivating. Not only did he cultivate the flowing water swordsmanship, but he also cultivated the 3 chapters of the legend of the vast sea swallowing the heavens. Yi Qinghan had given him the most essential insights, treating him like his own son and never mistreating him. Whoosh! Whoosh! Lin Wuqian didn't say much. He launched 3 sword attacks in front of Yi Qinghan. The sword energy wreaked havoc. It was fierce and domineering, but it lacked a little ethereal. It also lacked the feeling of flowing water and floating clouds. Second Master, I can't display your imposing and ethereal aura in these 3 moves. They are domineering, and their destructive power is sufficient. However, they lack the essence, Lin Wuqian whispered as he looked at Yi Qinghan expectantly. The sword follows the heart follows the sword. The sword and the heart fuse together. Drawing the sword, withdrawing the sword, changing the move, all in a single thought. Whoosh! Whoosh! Yi Qinghan stretched out his hand and took the divine sword. He launched 3 sword attacks at the same time. Although there was no divine power to support them, their imposing aura soared to the sky. The sword whistled and swayed into the depths. The sword energy directly penetrated the ancient trees and rocks. It looked like flowing water and floating clouds, but its destructive power could destroy everything. Lin Wuqian's eyes flashed. He took the divine sword and closed his eyes to comprehend it. He and Ling Yan's divine sword had not completely merged. It was already quite good that they could display such a level. The man and the divine sword gradually merged into one. Lin Wuqian's aura completely disappeared. There was only the aura of the divine sword in front of him. It seemed that he hit it better than Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's eyes were full of gratification. Perhaps, Lin Wuqian was his true successor, the one who could take away the Great Wasteland Steel. Yi Qinghan was not dead. The Great Wasteland Steel had an owner. No one could take it away. Just as Yi Qinghan was thinking, Lin Wuqian suddenly attacked. The sword pierced through the river. The 3 moves were unpredictable in an instant. There was no hesitation or awkwardness between the moves. The power increased by more than a few times. The domineering aura carried gentleness. The gentleness carried firmness and sharpness. Lin Wuqian had obtained the essence of the flowing water sword art. Not bad. Practice makes perfect. You still need a lot of time and essence to master it. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and patted Lin Wuqian's shoulder. He whispered, "Little Tian, go. Come back when you reach the Sector Lord realm. Don't be stubborn. You can't help me much now, but when you come back one day, you will make things easier for me." Lin Wuqian's nose turned sour. His eyes were watery. He lowered his head and did not speak. He was unwilling to leave. Second Master, this is the time when you need people the most. How can I leave? Lin Wuqian shook his head and said. I don't need people now. I don't need anyone. One more person will be a burden. If my clone returns, I won't have to worry about him anymore. I will fuse with him and find a place to steal for 3,000 to 5,000 years. When I reach the Sector Lord realm, what can the 7 Sector Lords do to me? Yi Qinghan sneered. Right now, Yi Qinghan's original body was not even as strong as his clone. He was only at the pseudo-Sector Lord realm. He couldn't hide from the divine sense of a Sector Lord. He could only hide for a while and stall for time. However, it would be different if his clone returned. At that time, his cultivation, realm, and battle prowess would rise to a whole new level. Even if he couldn't win against the 7 Sector Lords, he could kill them separately. Lin Wuqian still couldn't persuade himself to leave. He knew that it was useless to stay, but he still didn't want to leave. Even if they died together, he would be happy. Don't feel burdened. You have to understand that our final battle isn't now. It will be 1,000 years later. Yi Qinghan said in a deep voice. Do you want to sit side by side with me 1,000 years later, or do you want to die now and wait for me to fight alone 1,000 years later? Lin Wuqian immediately felt relieved. He respectfully knelt in front of Yi Qinghan and kowtowed 3 times. He said firmly, Second Master, I won't let you down. Yi Qinghan was very gratified. He bent down and helped Lin Wuqian up. He reminded him, if I die in battle, remember to bring the Great Wastelands Monument back to the Endless Universe. Our hometown, Owlfall Star, should have a special place there that can help you escape the pursuit of the Sector Lords. Yes, Second Master. Lin Wuqian stood up and quickly disappeared into the canyon. At this moment, only Yi Qinghan was left. His bleak back faced the cold wind as he silently waited for the arrival of the enemy. Swoosh! Swoosh! In the forbidden land of the Western Desert, countless experts rushed to the periphery, hoping to squeeze Yi Qinghan out. Many figures cooperated with the 3 sector lords to kill their way into the depths of the Western Desert, alarming many peerless beasts. Roar! A lone wolf instantly tore apart the body of a supreme god and swallowed him alive. Then, it swept through a large area of the Western Desert forest, causing great damage to the experts of the 7 realms. In the end, it alarmed Xue Wudi. Xue Wudi didn't feel the slightest shame for invading someone else's territory. He also didn't care that such a lone wolf was unique in the world. He directly attacked and crushed it into pieces. No matter how strong a beast was, as long as it wasn't a sector lord, it would be difficult for it to withstand a single attack from Xue Wudi. The beast's concept of territory was very strong. They didn't want to escape and only wanted to fight to the death. They suffered great losses. The experts of the 7 realms forced their way forward, not giving Yi Qinghan any chance to escape. They were getting closer and closer to the most dangerous place of the Western Desert. Yi Qinghan was hesitating whether to enter the most dangerous place. Only the peak pseudo-sector lords could survive there. The experts of the 7 realms who had disappeared were all in there. Once they entered, they would definitely be attacked from the front and back, which would be even more dangerous. Chapter 1487. In the Western Desert Danger Zone, blood dyed the mountains and rivers red. Experts emerged in large numbers. In the Western Desert Danger Zone, many older generation experts had no choice but to enter the danger zone to search for supreme treasures in order to break through. They were either peak pseudo-world lords or they were holding pseudo-world artifacts. Back then, for the sake of obtaining a pseudo-world artifact, Emperor Shui Yan directly fell out with Yi Qinghan. From this, one could see how dangerous this place was. This group of people was summoned by the 3 supreme world lords. There were at least 300 to 400 of them. They rushed out from the depths of the danger zone to search for Yi Qinghan. It was possible for Yi Qinghan to hide from the world lords. But for those paramount gods and pseudo-world lords, even if he was behind them, they wouldn't be able to discover him. The carpet search had lost its effect. For the time being, Yi Qinghan, Jiang Jingtian, and the others weren't in any danger. At this moment, Yi Qinghan's clone relied on his cultivation and made a sudden turn from the northern border. He rushed into the encirclement of the 9 great oceanic clans that were retreating. The elite guard crossed his arms and stood there as though he was watching a show. He, on the other hand, was coldly looking at Sha Kuang and the other patriarchs. This great one is lacking some resources. I wonder if you guys can cooperate with me. Share a portion of your clan savings with me. Yi Qinghan's aura soared. He held on to the giant sword and no longer suppressed his body. As his cultivation increased, he was actually 30 to 40 feet tall. He was completely a tall and sturdy giant. Robbery? The 9 great oceanic clans were stunned. Someone who dared to rob the 9 great oceanic clans alone. The Void Azure Dragon definitely wouldn't dare to do so. Even if there was a single world lord in the world, he wouldn't dare to rob so many oceanic clans experts. What did you say? Sha Kuang frowned. He thought he heard wrongly. He stepped on the waves and asked coldly. Pa. With a twist of his waist, Yi Qinghan's palm, which was as large as a banana leaf fan, kicked up a huge wave as it lashed out. This fellow was the most annoying and the most arrogant. He would definitely be the first to be dealt with. Bang! Boom! The deep-sea shark race had the largest body. Their speed in the sea was also top-notch. Although the giant he transformed into wasn't 30 feet tall, it was at least 20 feet tall. He was sturdy and looked terrifying. However, he was sent flying by Yi Qinghan's slap and didn't even have time to react. Whoosh! Sha Kuang's body was sent sliding on the surface of the sea, creating 2 huge waves. His teeth were almost sent flying as he spat out a mouthful of blood essence, dyeing half of the sea red. Yi Qinghan was incomparably callous. He did not even look at the other sea race experts as he lifted his leg and kicked at Sha Kuang. Sha Kuang was infuriated and immediately transformed back into his original form. His huge body shook the seawater as if it was raining cats and dogs. As soon as he entered the sea, he turned his head to bite Yi Qinghan. His huge tail slapped the sky and produced a huge force. Even time and space were distorted and the sea was split apart. Whoosh! Whoosh! Wave after wave, each wave was dozens of feet tall. It was enough to crush an ordinary expert. Yi Qinghan was even more powerful. The stone sword in his hand pierced through the water curtain and pierced through the gigantic tail. His right fist punched towards Sha Kuang's head. I'll let you be arrogant. Bang! Yi Qinghan's fist was definitely the most terrifying existence in terms of physical attacks. It was unknown how much power this fist contained. It was at least 1/5 of a sector lord's strength. When such an attack landed on Sha Kuang's head, it directly smashed him into the sea. Boom! Sha Kuang's body was dozens of feet long and weighed hundreds of tons. Originally, he should be comparable to a giant dragon in the deep sea. However, before Yi Qinghan, he was incomparably weak. A single punch smashed him into a bloody mess. His head buzzed and he lost consciousness. Roar! After his tail was pierced, Sha Kuang roared miserably. His head plunged into the sea, but his tail was suspended above the sea surface by Yi Qinghan. No matter how he struggled, he could not break free from Yi Qinghan's restraint. His tail was about to be cut open by the stone sword. Roar! Sha Kuang struggled madly. The sea became restless. The waves were like the self-detonation of the origin sacred stone, completely out of control. The 9 great sea races were stunned. As for the giant shark race, they could not accept this at all. Their godlike patriarch was actually dragged into the sky by Yi Qinghan by the tail. Boom! The 100-ton giant shark was dragged into the sky by the giant Yi Qinghan. It was like a water monkey leaving the water, instantly losing half of its combat strength. Ah! Yi Qinghan roared and swung his tail, throwing Sha Kuang into the sky. His body rushed up like a sword and he lifted his leg to kick upwards. Boom! Bang! Yi Qinghan, who possessed boundless strength, kicked Sha Kuang into the sky. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's body descended. He stepped on the surface of the sea and rushed towards Sha Kuang with the giant sword in his hand. If this sword pierced Sha Kuang's neck, even if he did not die, he would lose half his life. It was too fast. In a battle of the same level, Yi Qinghan had an absolute advantage over his opponent. Moreover, his speed was so fast that Sha Kuang had no chance to retaliate. As for the other sea race patriarchs, they were completely dumbfounded. Sha Kuang was the strongest and most tyrannical sea race apart from the Void Dragon. However, before Yi Qinghan, Sha Kuang was as weak as a baby. What could they do even if they attacked together? Lord, please spare my life. I'm willing to hand over my resources. Sha Kuang lost control of his body in the air and flew towards the depths of the Star River. However, his speed was much slower than Yi Qinghan's. Seeing Yi Qinghan rushing over with the stone sword, Sha Kuang immediately screamed and begged for mercy. Swish! In order to reduce the surface area of his injuries, Sha Kuang had no choice but to revert to his human form. However, it was even harder for him to control his body at this moment. Boom! Yi Qinghan was as fast as lightning. His body was covered in lightning and flames. He reached out with his left hand and grabbed Sha Kuang's neck tightly. The corner of his lips curled up and the cold flames in his eyes sent chills down one's spine. Sha Kuang immediately lost all thoughts of resisting. If you had been obedient earlier, why did you have to take a beating? You're really asking for a beating. Yi Qinghan said coldly. Hiss. 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 The sea race experts below were incomparably shocked. They did not even have the thought of running away because Yi Qinghan's speed was much faster than any of the sea race experts. The 8 sea race patriarchs exchanged glances. Xiong Qi, Baiyan, these were all ancient divine beasts with a long history. However, they did not dare to join forces. Yi Qinghan dragged Sha Kuang's body and appeared in front of the sea race experts. He warned coldly, those who resist will die. I want all the resources of the sea race. If you cooperate with me, I will only take half of it. I will not harm anyone. In any case, Sha Kuang was a leviathan with an unparalleled physical body. However, at this moment, he was like a lamb waiting to be slaughtered. He looked at Yi Qinghan pitifully and pleaded in despair, Lord, please spare my life. This little demon did not provoke you on purpose, I'll give you a chance. It depends on your performance. Don't think that I can't do anything to you in the deep sea. You won't be able to escape the void ocean, much less the 9 worlds heaven. Yi Qinghan swung Sha Kuang to one side and said coldly. Sha Kuang was afraid. He looked at the stone sword in Yi Qinghan's hand and his body trembled. Blood flowed from his body. He did not dare to have any other thoughts. Lord, don't worry, this little demon will not dare to act recklessly. Sha Kuang was the first to express his stance. He did not have any other thoughts. The other sea beasts did not dare to act recklessly. They all offered their treasures. Yi Qinghan was not interested in these trash. His target was the treasury of the 9 great sea race. He forced the experts of the 9 great sea race to search through them one by one. It was just along the way. He robbed wherever he went. Along the way, he robbed all the best treasures. No one dared to say anything. Jing Wei saw that his father was actually a robber. Moreover, he was so strong and did things in a routine. He guessed that this was not the first time he had done this. He thought that his father was an indomitable hero. He did not know whether to laugh or cry. Chapter 1488. Yi Qinghan plundered the 9 great oceanic species until they were dumbfounded. Their faces were pale. Not a single good item was left behind. There were also some unrecognizable treasures. When he saw them, his eyes lit up and he did not hesitate to take them all. Yi Qinghan visited each of the oceanic species bases and then sent them off respectfully. It was needless to say how wrong they felt. After leaving the oceanic territory of the 9 great oceanic species, Yi Qinghan looked satisfied. This time, he had obtained many treasures that he had dreamed of, including realm stones, origin sacred stones, saturated origin sacred stones, and some pseudo-world artifact materials. For example, the teeth of a deep-sea shark. They were hard and sharp and were definitely the best materials for forging pseudo-world artifacts. Jing Wei looked at Yi Qinghan's smirk and said, I didn't expect you to be such a father. You actually robbed, Yi Qinghan suddenly felt like he was leading a child astray. He hurriedly explained, this is a special situation. There are still a large number of people in the 9 realms waiting for me to feed them. In addition, these sea clans aren't good people. They wanted to rob me, so I gave them a taste of their own medicine. I wouldn't do the same to others, and I would never bully the weak. Jing Wei nodded thoughtfully. In any case, Yi Qinghan was no longer the indomitable and radiant saint in her heart. He was a treacherous person. Every principle had a bottom line. If she said he was a good person, it would tarnish the word good person. But if she said he was a bad person, it would not be the same. Let's go find Void Dragon. I want to take away that meteorite. It's an absolute treasure. It's enough for me to forge a heavy Berserker realm artifact saber. Yi Qinghan could not forget that meteorite. Just thinking about it made his blood boil. After speaking, the two headed straight for the oceanic species continent. In the oceanic continent, Long Shan and the Void Dragon were feeling uneasy. The 4 supreme world overlords had already recovered. Furthermore, they had appeared in the oceanic continent previously, causing him to be alarmed. If there was really no other way, he could only enter the depths of the void ocean and ask for help from the tyrant god dragon. That existence wasn't someone to be trifled with. He had a violent temper, and if he was truly angered, he could turn the entire void ocean upside down. Just as Void Dragon was at a loss, Yi Qinghan appeared in the inner city. Yi Qinghan returned to his original appearance and quietly appeared near the Dragon Mountain with his elite guards. He didn't hide his identity as he didn't want to arouse the disgust of the Azure Void Dragon and the Sea Dragon clan. He swaggered into the depths of Dragon Mountain. The moment Yi Qinghan appeared, an expert from the dragon race noticed him and immediately alerted the Void Dragon in the depths. The Void Dragon brought along a few clan elders and looked at Yi Qinghan with astonishment. He discovered that not only was he not injured, he was even stronger than before. Even he felt pressured. Mr. Yi, what a strong cultivation. Did you have a fortuitous encounter? The Void Dragon asked in shock. It's nothing. My soul is there. What I lack now is only strength. Yi Qinghan glanced at the others and said, let them leave first. I have something to discuss with you alone. The Void Dragon understood that Yi Qinghan's identity wasn't a small matter. If it was exposed, the world would be turned upside down. He didn't dare to let others know. He waved his hand and signaled the clan elders to leave. Yi Qinghan's aura was slowly becoming stronger. The Void Dragon looked tall and majestic with a dense dragon chi. However, in front of Yi Qinghan, he was just an ordinary old man. The Lord is indeed an ancient supreme being. Even if you reincarnate and cultivate again, we can only look up to you. The Void Dragon was suppressed in terms of aura. He felt that Yi Qinghan was undefeatable. He lowered his arrogant head and his voice became much softer. Jing Wei looked at Yi Qinghan's arrogant attitude. Even the high and mighty Void Dragon submitted to him. Jing Wei's little face was filled with pride as he felt a sense of honor. A father like this always made people feel safe. You can do it too. Of course, the prerequisite is that you work with me. I will turn you into another heavenly beast. A heavenly beast recognized by heaven, earth, and even the void ocean. Yi Qinghan's handsome face revealed a confident aura. It made people involuntarily believe in him. The Void Dragon no longer had any doubts. He bowed slightly and said, I will follow the Lord's instructions. If I can help, I will definitely not refuse. I need that meteorite and 3,000 stalks of level 12 dragon immortal grass. I don't want anything else. I will give you the complete 3 chapters of the legend of the vast ocean devouring the heavens and my comprehension. Yi Qinghan restrained his excitement and said calmly. Another 3,000 stalks of level 12 dragon immortal grass. The Void Dragon smiled bitterly. He was helpless. There was not much of that stuff. He had already given a few thousand stalks. I was seriously injured and used some of them. Now, I have to return to the 9 worlds heaven for some matters. I need a large amount of dragon immortal grass. The higher the grade, the better. Yi Qinghan widened his eyes and stared at the void dragon. He said slowly, I like people who help me in my hour of need. I don't need it. If you help me now, I will remember this favor. When I recover to my peak, you might realize how wise your decision is now. The void dragon gritted his teeth and said fiercely, the Lord is right. I was too foolish. If you had not reincarnated and cultivated again, how could I have the chance to help you? Lord, please follow me. You can choose whatever you want from the treasury. The void dragon finally thought it through and gestured with his hand. The 3 of them quickly arrived outside the treasury. The void dragon opened the treasury and the 3 of them entered. It was still the same treasury. The spiritual energy was overwhelming and it emitted the aura of life. Jing Wei was stunned. She had never seen so many treasures in her life. Taoist Jing Wei, what is your relationship with Mr. Yi? The void dragon wanted to express goodwill to Yi Qinghan, but he did not know what their relationship was. Logically speaking, Jing Wei was a lunatic. It was impossible for him to take the initiative to save a human. Now that he had saved a human, he should not have done so. Yi Qinghan smiled faintly. He pulled Jing Wei and patted her little head. He did not intend to hide anything from the void dragon. He said dotingly, she is my daughter, the daughter of my previous life. The void dragon sucked in a breath of cold air. What kind of fate was this? The daughter of his previous life saved his father in this life. Indeed, the fate of the previous life returned in this life. There must be a cause and effect. Fellow Taoist, you're the only one who knows her identity. Everyone else only knows that she saved me. I've never held anything back from you, so I hope you won't betray me. Also, I'd advise your clansmen to keep quiet about everything about me, said Yi Qinghan calmly. Don't worry, Lord. Even if the 4 realm lords who entered the void ocean were arrogant, they would not dare to make a move in the sea race continent. If they provoked the ancestral divine dragon heavenly beast, they would not have a good time. The void dragon said confidently. Yi Qinghan smiled and did not say anything else. He walked towards the depths of the void ocean to take the meteorite and the dragon immortal grass. As for the realm stones and origin sacred stones, he had already plundered enough from the 9 great clans. He did not want to deprive the sea dragon race of them. The void dragon looked at Jing Wei as he walked. He was thinking about what treasure to give. After thinking for a long time, he finally decided to give one of the 2 dragon scale divine robes that the sea dragon race had. This dragon scale divine robe was made from the scales of a peak Tao transformation dragon. Each of them was priceless. They could weaken physical attacks and divine force attacks by at least 50%. The dragon scale divine robe shone with golden light. It was very beautiful, as if it was adorned with countless jewels. Yi Qinghan did not say much and took the dragon immortal grass. This time, he took the meteorite. It did not take much effort. However, he needed to carry it and could not put it into the Yin clan's pot. After that, Yi Qinghan wrote a copy of the 3 chapters of the legend of the vast sea devouring the heavens and gave it to the void dragon. He also gave him a copy of his comprehension. Then, he took the meteorite and rushed towards the great wasteland world in the west. Chapter 1489. The Avatar was as fast as lightning, breaking through the waves and closing in on the Realm Lord. As for the Great Desolation Domain, it was already occupied by the experts of the 7 realms. The Great Desolation Palace was sealed and the ruins of the various cities were occupied by the 7 great armies. Yi Qinghan silently appeared in the Great Desolation Domain and said to Jing Wei with a solemn expression, Zi Yan, I will send you into the Inshur's pot first. There is my current wife in the pot and I hope you can get along well with her. You can discuss the Tao with her and her zither music might be able to help you break through earlier. I really need the support of the Realm Lord now. Jing Wei also understood that Yi Qinghan's memories of Bai Zhe were accidentally deciphered by him. It was normal for him to have a wife. Moreover, in the ancient era, wasn't it normal for experts to have multiple wives? As long as she doesn't make things difficult for me, I won't be calculative with her. Although Jing Wei's eyes were filled with displeasure, she wasn't willing to express it. This was because she understood that the current situation was extremely dangerous and a war with the Seven Realms could break out at any moment. She didn't want to distract Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath and felt gratified. He waved his hand and sent Jing Wei into the Incher's pot. Inside the pot, Emperor Yi was cultivating in seclusion. The silver snake female cultivator was so frightened that she didn't even dare to speak. She could only obediently wait at the side. After Jing Wei entered the Incher's pot, he glanced indifferently and recognized the silver snake female cultivator. Naturally, he knew that she wasn't his father's beloved wife. His bright eyes stared at Emperor Ye's flawless face like the prettiest sister next door. He gently played the zither and the zither music was melancholic and melodious. His white hair had yet to recover. Her white hair was due to the exhaustion of her life force in despair. The quality of her hair couldn't be recovered unless she reforged her fleshly body and changed her appearance. However, she didn't want to do so. Jing Wei was shocked. He didn't expect such a young and beautiful face to have a head of white hair. The vicissitudes of life in her eyes were much denser than a fake sector lord great circle like him. Originally, he had some enmity in his heart, but now, he couldn't. Emperor Yi already knew that Yi Qinghan had found his daughter. She was open-minded and cheerful. As long as it was someone from Yi Qinghan's previous life, she would accept them unconditionally. She would even love and care for the people around him like she loved Yi Qinghan. If it was a child, she would even treat them as her own. Emperor Yi opened his eyes and stopped playing the guqin. The wind calmed down. His white hair draped over his shoulders and remained motionless. His intelligent eyes looked at Jing Wei and he smiled. Xian, I hope you don't feel pressured. Just call me Lil Hanyang. I also hope that we can get along well. Jing Wei pursed his lips and smiled like a shy little girl. He nodded and said, "Hello, little Mississippi." Yi Qinghan scanned the insides of the Incher's pot with his divine senses. Seeing that the elite guards did not overreact, he was relieved. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's body twisted and returned to its original form. The swoosh-shui of the past had returned. The sky was heavy and snow filled the sky. The great wilderness was still the great wilderness, but it was occupied by others. Yi Qinghan looked around and realized that there were people from the Seven Realms everywhere. However, he did not see Ji Gu and Zhu Wuxin. He also did not see the divine bird. His eyes flashed and his face was expressionless. The only thing he could do now was to split the snow country and the divine world, seize military power, and leave Shui Wudi alone. However, he was afraid that Ling Yan would return and support Shui Wudi. Yi Qinghan suppressed his nervousness and looked down at the meteorite in his hand. Thoughts of reforged berserk surged. With the world treasure berserk and the stone sword, it should not be a problem for his doppelganger to deal with Shui Wudi. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan continued to fly south, away from the center of the great wilderness. He rushed towards the southern border. Many of the great wilderness's divine beasts had hidden in the southern border. It was extremely dangerous and humans rarely went there. Even in the great wilderness of the past, only a few strong people would go there. Yi Qinghan sped for more than a month and appeared in the southern border. Poisonous miasma filled the air and poisonous beasts were hard to tame. Even he, the master of the great wilderness, could not make them submit. However, Yi Qinghan did not disturb them and they would not dare to challenge the master of the great wilderness. Fire Forest Mountain was an active volcano that could erupt at any time. The temperature inside was terrifying. Yi Qinghan took the materials and jumped into the volcano. Flames as his robe and lava as his armor. The terrifying temperature could instantly kill a paramount divine spirit. However, to Yi Qinghan, it could not cause any harm. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and summoned all the materials for the boundary artifact. He took the teeth from the deep-sea shark race and the deep-sea divine iron from the Qiongqi and Swanee races. The materials were enough to forge a 7-foot-long broadsword. Just the materials contained in this meteorite were enough. Hua! Yi Qinghan mobilized the fire origin within his body, covering 100 meters. The entire volcano was set ablaze, causing lava to surge and become restless. The air above the volcano was also set ablaze, and the temperature was shocking. The ferocious beasts and venomous snakes around the Fire Forest Mountain were frightened into fleeing. The combustion-supporting materials appeared in his hand. Yi Qinghan condensed the hottest temperature in front of him and lifted the materials with both hands. He actually refined them in his hands. Time passed slowly. Even the meteorite started to melt, let alone the other materials. He now controlled the temperature of the lava inside Fire Forest Mountain, the fire origin's temperature, and the combustion-supporting materials. No matter how hard the material was, it would melt. The lava was also ignited. Yi Qinghan's forehead was dripping with sweat and his body was soaked. Even though he could control the fire origin to isolate the temperature, it was about to melt at this moment. Hua! 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 The feather spirit robe fluttered in the heat and became very soft as if it was about to melt. Melt quickly. Yi Qinghan's eyes were malevolent. He frantically mobilized the power of the world and fixed the melting divine liquid in front of him, circulating it back and forth. Half of the meteorite had melted, and the other materials had all melted. The entire Fire Forest Mountain was burning. The lava inside was starting to go out of control and would erupt at any moment. Yi Qinghan hovered above the lava, his hair turning red from the heat, like a god of fire. Hua! 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 The lava flowed. Yi Qinghan's divine robe had already melted. The feather spirit robe was in imminent danger. If the feather spirit robe melted, it would endanger the main body. Fortunately, his physical body was abnormal enough. However, the high temperature had triggered the hidden genes of the giant blood race. It caused the blood in his body to become restless and flow like lava. Boom! The inheritance of the giant blood race suddenly appeared in Yi Qinghan's sea of consciousness. Boundless memories attacked his soul. If his soul wasn't strong enough, it would definitely be shattered by this wave of memories. The giant blood race inheritance. Yi Qinghan eliminated all other memories and only dug out the lightning that streaked across the depths of his sea of consciousness. That was a secret technique, the giant sword art. There were a total of 9 swords and each sword was stronger than the previous one. The power of the first sword was only a tenth of the second sword, and the power was only a tenth of the second sword. The power of the third sword would increase by another 10 times. After reaching the 9th sword, the power would reach an immeasurable level. Even if Yi Qinghan reached the Sector Lord realm, he would be instantly sucked dry. This was purely a forbidden technique that would cause both sides to suffer. However, with the power of the 9th sword, even if 7 world overlords worked together, they would be crippled by this sword. Chapter 1490. Yi Qinghan stayed in the Fire Forest Mountain for half a year. The southern border was restless, and thousands of beasts were fleeing as if they had sensed the impending danger. Once the Fire Forest Mountain erupted, who knew how many miles of mountains and rivers would be destroyed? The scorching temperature was still rising, and the mountain was burned down. Magma was surging, and if not for Yi Qinghan suppressing it, the volcano would have erupted long ago. Rumble rumble, the boiling magma could be clearly seen from afar. Fortunately, the southern border was too far from the center of the Great Wasteland domain, and no one knew. Otherwise, this place would be surrounded by experts. A flame rushed into the clouds, and Yi Qinghan appeared in the sky with a scarlet longsword in his hand. His flaming divine robe fluttered, and the space around the gravity craze was distorted, and the temperature was rapidly decreasing. The gravity craze had already taken shape, but it was even more powerful. The Great Wasteland Divine Pearl was submerged in the depths, and Yi Qinghan forced out a mouthful of essence blood to bathe in the gravity craze. The gravity craze was infused with spiritual energy, and it was as if it was alive. It stood in the air by itself, and its aura was vast and mighty, suppressing the heavens. The power of the world was overflowing, tearing apart mountains and rivers, and the aura was spreading towards the center of the Great Wasteland domain. At this moment, Zhu Wuxin and Ji Gu had led their army into the center. They suddenly raised their heads and looked at the sky above the southern border, and a familiar tyrannical aura appeared, causing their expressions to change greatly. The aura of the gravity craze. Zhu Wuxin understood Yi Qinghan quite well. The gravity craze was violent, tyrannical, and dignified. At this moment it was tens of thousands of times stronger, shaking the heavenly river. Suafeng. Ji Gu was incomparably shocked, and he turned to look at Zhu Wuxin. For a moment, he couldn't be sure if the person who caused the chaos in the southern border was the Suafeng who had died a long time ago. It should be him. This aura is too obvious, and it's just that it's many times stronger. Zhu Wuxin could feel it even across space. When such a terrifying existence erupted, it was a true realm lord. Ji was in disbelief, and he muttered, "How is this possible? Even if it's him, how long has it been since he left us? It's only been a dozen years, and he actually broke through to such a realm. Is he a monster?" Boom. And just when the two of them were shocked, a wave of heat blasted out in all directions from the southern wilderness. It was like a star exploding or a world overlord self-detonating. Billowing heat waves rushed into the depths of the grand desolate mountains. In the distance and at the end of the galaxy, heavy rain poured down, drifting down and helping Yi Qinghan cool down Zhongguang. However, no matter how heavy the rainwater was, it was evaporated by the high temperature upon contact with Zhongguang. Zhongguang remained scarlet red. Yi Qinghan formed hand seals with both of his palms, continuously setting up large formations and inserting them into the interior of crazed beast to strengthen its power. Boom! The berserk divine might continued to erupt, and wave after wave of heat rushed into the distance. No living creature dared to approach within 1,000 miles. At that moment, the sector lords in the Void Ocean and Western Desert's forbidden ground were too far away to sense them. This gave Yi Qinghan precious time to perfect his berserk. Otherwise, that group of people would not have allowed Yi Qinghan to condense his berserk into a boundary artifact. Yi Qinghan's body grew to 2 meters tall. The 7-foot berserk did not seem cumbersome at all. Instead, it gave off a domineering feeling. The great desolation divine bead on the saber hilt was completely enveloped. The divine bead strengthened the spirituality within the saber. However, it could no longer change its shape. This was because the material of the boundary artifact was too strong. It was of the same grade as the divine bead. It could not change the shape of the divine bead, but the divine bead could not change it either. The divine bead was originally a supreme treasure fused with the Great Desolation Tablet. Now that it was fused with the 7-foot berserk, its power did not decrease at all. As time passed, the berserk became more and more perfect. The army south of the Great Desolation Palace of the Great Desolation Domain was filled with fear and shock. This was because they realized that Yi Qinghan's aura was so terrifying that they could not comprehend it. However, they did not know that it was Yi Qinghan. At this moment, Ji Gu and Zhu Wuxin looked at each other. They did not know how to face Yi Qinghan. What if Yi Qinghan came back to seize power and asked them to follow him? A domain could not have two lords. This was also the reason why only one domain lord could be born in a domain. Zhu Wuxin and Ji Gu did not know that Yi Qinghan was the Great Desolation warlord. They thought that he was the left vanguard of the divine world of the Snow Empire. For a moment, they did not know who to pledge their allegiance to. In terms of feelings, they had deeper feelings for Yi Qinghan. This was because they had fought side by side. If it was Ling Yan, they would naturally choose Xue Wudi without hesitation. Unfortunately, Ling Yan was dead and Xue Wudi had run to the Western Desert Impasse. The two of them naturally wavered. Roar, boom. Yi Qinghan drew his saber. Thunder roared and a bolt of lightning struck down. However, before it could strike Yi Qinghan, it was scattered by the saber. His aura dispersed the dark clouds. However, the dark clouds gathered again. The lightning within the dark clouds were densely packed. The dark clouds seemed to be burning. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan rushed to the sky and slashed at the dark clouds. Zhong Kuang was so angry that he destroyed everything. It was as if he could not be provoked and the heavenly Tao could not be disobeyed. Boom! The dark clouds and lightning above the southern border were destroyed by Zhong Kuang's saber. Countless amounts of energy were absorbed in an instant. The army of the southern part of the Great Desolation domain was speechless. They broke out in cold sweat. Some people recognized Zhong Kuang, but not all of them were from the Snow Empire or the Divine World. Back then, Left Vanguard had killed many enemies with Zhong Kuang. His last battle ended with self-destruction. Wu Jimu personally led the army. In the end, all of them were killed except for Wu Jimu and the supreme martial artist. The entire army was annihilated. Such a battle was rarely seen in 10,000 years. It's the Left Marshal. The Left Marshal is back. The Snow Empire and the Divine World were the most excited. Especially the ordinary soldiers, they seemed to be even more excited. This was because they had followed Yi Qinghan to fight before. They had never lost. Their losses were the least, but their army had gained the most. If Yi Qinghan's cultivation was higher than Xue Wudi's, they would not hesitate to follow the Left Marshal. Ji Gu found that the Snow Empire army was restless. He could not stop them. He turned to Zhu Wuxin and asked, "Who are you helping?" Regardless of whether the Left Marshal had become a realm lord or not, his strength was already not inferior to a realm lord. There were two realm lords in one realm. They would definitely fight each other. There was no need to ask. Zhu Wuxin took a deep breath and said with a hoarse voice, "I am now because of Mr. Zhua. My current achievements are also because of Mr. Zhua. As long as he needs me, I will rise up at any time. Brother Ji Gu, I hope we are not enemies on the battlefield." Zhu Wuxin took a step back. He held his spear and looked at Ji Gu with vigilance. Shua! The Snow Empire army quickly divided into two. Those who followed Zhu Wuxin and those who followed Ji Gu were very vigilant against each other. Ji Gu waved his hand and signaled the army to calm down. His handsome face revealed a trace of hesitation and struggle. "My master is already dead. I have no direct relationship with the Snow Empire Lord. However, Zhuo Feng and I are brothers who fought side by side. If there is a need, I will help him without hesitation." Ji Gu said what he was thinking. However, after a moment, he continued, "However, I must first make sure that my master's death has nothing to do with the Left Marshal." Zhu Wuxin was slightly surprised. Now that he thought about it, it seemed that the current Left Marshal could really kill Ling Yan. At this moment, Yi Qinghan's long hair draped over his shoulders. He directly distorted the void from the southern border and arrived at the center of the great wasteland domain in a single step. His long robe fluttered in the wind. His aura could reach the heavens. He looked down at the two great commanders from the sky. "Brother Zhu, Brother Ji Gu, long time no see." Yi Qinghan's voice was deep and mighty. It spread countless li away. The army who heard it felt their scalp tingling. Chapter 1491. Brother Ju, Brother Ji Gu, long time no see. His voice was deep and powerful, it rumbled and exploded in the sky, echoing. Greetings Left Marshal. Welcome back Left Marshal. A left commander-in-chief led his 10,000 troops and took the lead to roar. Their imposing manner was like a rainbow. Millions of soldiers of the Snow Realm, no matter if they supported Ju Wuxin or Ji Gu, at this moment, they all knelt down on one knee and roared in unison. They seemed to be very excited. Their expectation of Commanders Wa seemed to have surpassed their expectation of Shui Wudi. Brothers Wa, I didn't expect to see you again. My heart was hurt for a long time. Ji Gu squinted his eyes and stared at Yi Qinghan. He wanted to know how Yi Qinghan survived after self-destructing. He wanted to know even more if Ling Yan died in his hands. Yi Qinghan smiled indifferently and said, by chance, my soul was able to escape and refine my body. By chance, I broke through to this realm. Looking at Ji Gu and Ju Wuxin's expression, there seemed to be too many things that he didn't understand and couldn't explain to them. He glanced at De Huang and asked curiously, why are the 7 realm armies gathered in De Huang? Even the realm lord has come out. Did something big happen? The doppelganger was too far away from the main body and couldn't sense the soul fluctuation. Naturally, they couldn't communicate. The main body killed Ling Yan, but the doppelganger didn't know. Yi Qinghan was also confused. Ji Gu stared at Yi Qinghan. Seeing his expression, it seemed that he really didn't know the reason. He said, my master has fallen. Yi Qinghan's pupils shrank. He clenched violent hammer. He was shocked and unwilling. He naturally wanted to kill Ling Yan with his own hands, but he died now. What? Who killed him? Yi Qinghan asked in a low voice. Yi Qinghan's expression wasn't fake. It was the most natural reaction. Ji Gu finally let out a sigh of relief. He really didn't want to be enemies with Yi Qinghan because his plan was too terrifying. I heard it was Desolate Lord. Originally, all the realm lords participated in the 7 realm war. But not long after, Mr. Ling Yan fell. The 7 realm lords joined forces to find Desolate Lord. Ju Wuxin explained. Yi Qinghan was expressionless, but his heart was in turmoil. Killing Ling Yan at this time, it wasn't a good thing. Brother Ji Gu, my condolences, Yi Qinghan said solemnly. Ji Gu nodded and let out a breath of turbid air. He didn't seem to be particularly sad. He said calmly, the debt of the past, I will pay it back today. Master's fall is something that will happen sooner or later. If he was really killed by Desolate Lord, I won't take revenge. After all, so many innocent people have died in the vast wilderness. They also need an explanation. Yi Qinghan's mouth twitched. He looked at Ji Ji's serious expression and felt very complicated. This enemy's disciple, if he knew that he was Desolate Lord, what would happen? Yi Qinghan didn't think too much about it. At this time, Ji Gu had to follow him. Otherwise, it would be difficult to fight against Shui Wudi. Brother Ji Gu, Brother Ju, although my realm is not that of a sector lord, my battle strength can definitely threaten the safety of a sector lord. Shui Wudi will not allow me to live. In order to survive, I have to unify the Snow Empire and the God Realm. Will you follow me or follow Shui Wudi? Yi Qinghan stared at the two and asked. The people of the left martial residence naturally wouldn't go against Yi Qinghan's will. They took the initiative to go over the 2 marshals and expressed their loyalty in advance to influence the army's thoughts. If Ju Wuxin and Ji Gu didn't agree to submit, Yi Qinghan would kill them without hesitation and appoint a new marshal. We pledge our lives to follow Left Marshal. A captain stepped forward and said. We pledge our lives to follow Left Marshal. In life, we are people of the left martial residence. In death, we are ghosts of the left martial residence. The 10,000-strong army followed in unison. Their aura was definitely not something an ordinary border army could compare to. Very quickly, this group of people influenced a large number of soldiers. They all stepped forward and expressed their willingness to follow. Zhu Wuxin and Ji Gu seemed to have known from the beginning how great Yi Qinghan's influence on the army was. They weren't surprised and didn't look embarrassed. They just went with the flow and stepped forward to express their willingness to assist. When the two marshals pledged their loyalty, almost no one objected. The millions of Snow Border Army all pledged their allegiance and became people of the left martial residence. They no longer belonged to the Snow Empire or the God Realm. Yi Qinghan laughed happily and said frankly, I am very happy to have you brothers in this life. Since you have entrusted your lives to me, I dare to make a great vow. In this life, all of my brothers will be gods and Buddhas. When the 9 lands are peaceful, everyone will be lords. If anyone dares to kill me, even if I have to chase them to the ends of the earth, I will definitely kill them with my own hands. The reason why the army followed left martial was naturally because Yi Qinghan treated his brothers like his own hands and feet. He would never treat them unfairly. These Snow Border Army soldiers, which one of them wasn't outstanding in the same realm? Their hearts were heavier than anyone else's. They only joined the army for resources. If they followed the right person, they would enjoy a lifetime of glory and wealth. If they followed the wrong person, they would die on the battlefield. Where is the divine bird? Yi Qinghan stabilized his emotions and immediately asked. When the divine bird was mentioned, Zhu Wuxin and Ji Ji's faces darkened and they both shook their heads. This guy took away 80% of the ultimate martial world's resources. Then, he disappeared with the 3 million strong army and 1 million prisoners. Zhu Wuxin smiled bitterly. Yi Qinghan rolled his eyes. He didn't want to ask the divine bird anymore. This guy definitely wouldn't lose out. He then said, clean up the Great Wasteland Domain and expel the 7-realm army. We will use the Great Wasteland Domain as our backing, so that our resources won't be suppressed by others. Ji Gu and Zhu Wuxin did not hesitate to carry out the order. They led the army towards the armies of the other realms. They were originally allies, but they never thought that the people of the Snow Empire and Divine World would suddenly change directions and attack them. They were caught off guard and could only flee. In order to not offend the realm lords of the other realms, Yi Qinghan and the others did not kill them. They only expelled them. Only those who dared to resist would be killed without mercy. The majority of the Snow Empire and Divine World Army were loyal to the left martial residence or Ji Gu. Only 1/5 of them were 100% loyal to the royal family. This group of people was led by Xuechong. Seeing that Zhu Wuxin and Ji Gu were determined to fight, they naturally did not dare to fight. They led the 2 million strong army and quickly retreated out of the Great Wasteland Domain. The 7-realm army were all expelled to the border of the Great Wasteland Domain. In addition, Yi Qinghan was the commander of the charge. Who could resist? Retreat. Retreat from the Great Wasteland Domain. The Unparalleled Realm Army was the first to retreat from the Great Wasteland Domain. Following closely were the Divine Martial Realm, Ultimate Martial Realm, True Martial Realm. The people of the Unparalleled Realm thought that the Snow Empire army would not dare to attack because they had disappeared without a trace. However, they did not expect that Yi Qinghan would wave his hand and forcefully capture a few wild beasts. They self-destructed in midair, dyeing the sky red. A rain of blood fell from the Great Wasteland Domain. The people of the Unparalleled Realm could not hide and were all exposed. Kill. Leave no one alive. Yi Qinghan said coldly. The people of the Unparalleled Realm regretted. Unfortunately, it was already too late. The exit of the Great Wasteland Domain was blocked. Millions of Snow Empire armies surrounded the Unparalleled Realm army. Boom! Yi Qinghan's long blade was invincible. He killed his way through. His aura soared to the heavens, and even the commander of the unparalleled realm was killed. Chapter 1492. The great wilderness was deathly silent. Blood flowed like a river at the border. More than 1,000,000 soldiers of the formless world thought they were invincible, but they were all suppressed, including their commander. The great wilderness was occupied by Yi Qinghan with millions of Snow World army. It was the establishment of a nation, the name of the nation, Warring States. On the day of the establishment of the nation, a simple ceremony was held. Then, Yi Qinghan led the army and charged into the Snow Country's divine world. As the commander of the Snow World army, a large number of citizens of the Snow Country's divine world rushed into the Snow Country's holy city. In the recent decades, the actions of the Snow Country's divine world against the royal family had become more and more intense. Now, the left commander personally led the Snow World army into the holy city to capture the royal family, kill the corrupt officials, and exterminate the large families. Back then, all the families that participated in the Great Wilderness War, including the Wang family in Wangzhongjuan, were killed. Yi Qinghan didn't care about that relationship at all. All the resources of the Snow Country's divine world were controlled, including the royal family's treasury. The Snow Country's divine world was completely devoured. The situation was one-sided. Many people didn't hesitate to abandon their ancestral land to follow the left commander. Yi Qinghan ordered the large families and forces of the Snow Country's divine world to stay put and only take away the families of those who joined the Snow World army. Because he didn't just want the Great Wilderness world, he wanted the entire Snow Country's divine world. The families of the soldiers naturally had to be taken away. Otherwise, once Xue Wudi returned, he would definitely choose to take revenge. A large number of families in the Snow Country's divine world began to move towards the Great Wilderness world. In the holy city, Yi Qinghan looked at the captured royal clan elder. Most of them were giant gods, and there were close to 100 supreme gods. However, there were only 3 fake realm lords. Where is the emperor? Yi Qinghan didn't announce how to deal with them. Instead, he asked seriously. Zhu Wuxin said, "He is still in the palace, he didn't disturb us." The 9th prince was trembling. He didn't expect the left commander to come back and capture the royal family. Was he trying to overthrow the regime? Concubine Xue wasn't afraid. She sat calmly in the Luan palace. "Mother, what is the left commander trying to do? Since he has captured all the imperial clan elders, why hasn't he attacked the imperial palace?" The 9th prince asked fearfully. "Don't worry, Marshal Zhua is a smart man. Since he did this, he must have been forced into a corner. Maybe his cultivation is enough to threaten the realm lord, or maybe, there are other reasons. No matter what the reason is, since he wants to take over the Snow Country's divine world, he must have a proper ruler to control the Snow Country's divine world. And you are the best candidate. Therefore, he won't touch us or the 18th prince." The 9th prince looked at imperial concubine Xue in confusion, not knowing what she was trying to say. Imperial concubine Xue slowly stood up. Her graceful figure made people's hearts involuntarily move. Her snow-white skin was hidden in her snow-white robe. She was elegant and magnanimous. She truly had the aura of a mother. "He will execute all the experts of the royal family, except for you and 18. However, he needs you to personally give the order. As for him, he will attack and occupy the holy city in the name of cleaning up the emperor's subordinates and killing vile people." Imperial concubine Xue lowered her voice and reminded him. "Ah! Kill all the royal experts. They are all my ancestors. If I really kill them, wouldn't I be committing treason?" The 9th prince hastily asked. Imperial concubine Xue's eyes flashed coldly as she said in a deep voice, "You must kill them, or we will all die." A figure appeared in Imperial concubine Xue's palace. It was Yi Qinghan. His evil aura made imperial concubine Shui tremble. She was smart enough to face anyone, but in front of Yi Qinghan, she didn't dare to play any tricks. That kind of servility came from her bones. "Mister, you are back. I knew you wouldn't die. You made me sad for a long time." Imperial concubine Shui's body trembled, and her voice trembled. N. Yi Qinghan snorted from his throat. He looked around the main hall. It was still the same main hall, and the servants were outside. Only the mother and daughter were here discussing. "Your Majesty, the Imperial clan elder attempted to rebel. This commander has already captured all of them. Please go out and deal with them. After all, this is your royal family's matter. It is not good for this commander to intervene." Yi Qinghan glanced at the 9th prince and said. The 9th prince's forehead was covered in sweat. He looked at Imperial concubine Shui, not knowing what to do. Imperial concubine Shui said in a muffled voice, "What are you still standing there for? Go quickly. According to the laws of the royal family, those who rebel will be killed without mercy. Killing the entire clan is only for the sake of kinship. Your Majesty is merciful, so you only need to kill the masterminds of the giant god realm and above." When the 9th prince heard Imperial concubine Shui's words, he quickly ran out of the Empress Dowager's Luan palace. As soon as the 9th prince left, Imperial concubine Shui directly knelt down. Her legs couldn't stand steadily. Yi Qinghan looked at Imperial concubine Shui with a wicked charm. He reached out and helped her up. He kneaded her soft and boneless body and said with a wicked smile, "Imperial concubine Shui has become more and more feminine recently." Imperial concubine Shui panicked and said, "This is all thanks to Mister's good teachings. When you weren't here, I missed you so much." Yi Qinghan gently placed her on the phoenix bed. He narrowed his eyes and said, "When I wasn't here, did anyone else touch you?" Imperial concubine Shui explained in horror, "How would I dare? If you don't believe me, you can check." Humph. Yi Qinghan coldly snorted and asked, "Tell me everything that happened when I was gone. I don't know anything about the situation right now." Imperial concubine Shui quickly knelt on the bed and slowly took off Yi Qinghan's divine robes. She said, "I've been paying attention. I'm afraid that Mister will ask about it when you return. The biggest thing that happened recently is the return of the Desolate Lord. The 7 realm lords were all scared out of their wits. It was originally a chaotic war between the 7 realms, but with Ling Yan's death, the 7 realms immediately calmed down. The realm lords personally went to the Great Desolate Domain to look for the Great Desolate Warlord." Yi Qinghan listened to the report while enjoying Imperial concubine Shui's service. These past few years had been very tiring. After a simple service, he had a reaction. He directly raised his spear and went into battle, killing Imperial concubine Shui until she threw away her helmet and armor. Outside the Imperial Palace, the 9th prince personally issued an order as the emperor. He announced to the world that the Imperial clan elder had conspired in rebellion, and that all the masterminds above the giant god level would be executed. The Imperial clan elder was furious. He did not expect that the 9th prince would actually cooperate with Yi Qinghan's actions. Emperor Shui Yan's anger reached the heavens. He roared, "You disgraceful bastard, you actually colluded with outsiders to execute the clan elder. Do you still have the dignity of the Imperial clan in your eyes?" Unfortunately, Emperor Shui Yan had already angered Zhu Wuxin, Ji Gu, and a large number of other commanders. After the 9th prince gave the order, they did not hesitate to order the execution of the Imperial clan elder. In a split second, blood flowed like a river outside the city. Corpses were strewn everywhere, and screams filled the sky. The Snow Country's divine realm no longer had the Imperial clan. There was also no Imperial clan elder. When Shui Wudi returned, he would discover that there was no one left in the clan that he could use. This was the result that Yi Qinghan wanted. He did not want to give the world a chance to gossip. In addition, the Imperial clan was already unpopular. Now that the people's hearts were united, the Snow Country's divine realm was completely under the control of Yi Qinghan. Even if Xue Wudi returned, he would not be able to reverse the situation. Yi Qinghan left imperial concubine Xue's palace and came to the city wall. Looking at the corpses strewn everywhere, his eyes were cold. Chapter 1493. In the western desert, there were people everywhere. They were all experts of the 7 realms. They were trying to capture Yi Qinghan's true body. Yi Qinghan could no longer wait for death. He summoned Yan Yunbei. "Kill!" Yi Qinghan said in a low voice. Yan Yunbei disappeared like a ghost. The depths of the western desert suddenly quieted down as if they had sensed danger. Rustle, rustle, rustle. Green vines stretched out one after another. The star-twining vine hid in the depths of the forest, using the forest as a place to hide and divine medicine as bait to attract people to take the initiative to approach. No one would have thought that a single green vine would be able to kill people. Those who approached without the slightest bit of restraint were directly pierced by it. Immediately after, countless vines pierced through their bodies. Miserable cries rang out incessantly. Blood dyed the vines red, changing their color. At the same time, Yan Yunbei began his assassination. His actions were ruthless. The dagger in his hand and his clothes were all black. His black hair draped over his shoulders. In the middle of the night, he merged with the heaven and earth. Puchi, a supreme god, moved forward slowly. His throat was pierced and his mouth was covered. The dagger pierced through his head. His soul was poisoned instantly. Bang! With a muffled sound, the corpse fell to the ground. Yan Yunbei turned into a ghost and disappeared. Night was Yan Yunbei's world. As long as he didn't bump into the Realm Lord, no one could discover him. The other experts' lives were in the blink of an eye. Life disappeared one by one. However, these were just ordinary experts. The real seniors of the 7 realms were all in the depths of the western desert. They had been training in the western desert for a long time. Now, they were summoned by Xue Wudi and the other realm lords. At this moment, more than 10 commanders of the Snow Country's divine world who were loyal to the royal family gave up on the realm army and rushed to the depths. They were ready to inform Xue Wudi that something big had happened in the Snow Country's divine world. They were led by Xue Chong. They were all loyal followers of the royal family. They split into several directions and approached the depths. "We must inform the Supreme Realm Lord that Zhuo Feng has betrayed us and is attacking the Snow Country's divine world." Whoosh whoosh whoosh. One after another, figures sped past and continued to press into the depths. They were at the same level as the star-twining vine. The star-twining vine was slightly in front of them. If they touched it, they would definitely be devoured. Boom! In the depths, a series of rumbling sounds rang out. Jiang Jingtian had also participated in the battle. They were scattered too far apart, and even if the Realm Lord could sense the tremors, he couldn't be bothered to look at them. After all, there were simply too many of such tremors because there were many vicious beasts in the depths that could jump out at any moment to kill. This group of people were considered outsiders. The evil beasts were hunting them, Yan Yunbei was assassinating them, and the star-twisting vines were devouring them. The 3 realm lords couldn't help them even if they wanted to. The 3 paragons were separated by a distance of 50,000 kilometers. They could even clearly sense that the desolate lord was in the depths. Reporting. Reporting. The commander led by Xue Chong roared toward the depths. Zhuo Feng has rebelled, the great wasteland domain has been occupied, the Snow Empire and the Divine Realm have been captured, and the royal family has been executed. The message was transmitted by the sound waves and finally reached the depths. When Xue Wudi heard that the royal family of the Snow Country and the Divine World had been killed, he was instantly enraged. He was the only master of the Snow Country, and now there was a second one. It was as if another man was sleeping beside his woman. The shame immediately drowned his soul. He was furious and his eyes were blazing. Damn that Suofeng. I knew he wasn't simple. Shui Wudi's palm cut open the forest of despair. A powerful beast was crushed into dust. The corners of his mouth curled up. His dignified face was filled with coldness. Suofeng. This old man wants to see just how great your capabilities are. Shui Wudi muttered and turned to look in the direction of revered god Wu Ji. He shouted coldly, I need to return to the divine kingdom to settle some personal matters. I'll leave this place to you. His voice rumbled like thunder and rushed into the distance. Revered god Wu Ji frowned and replied coldly, what's more important than pursuing the desolate lord? If you leave, even if Brother Six Demon and I find the desolate lord, we might not be able to capture him. Whoosh, Shui Wudi distorted space-time and appeared in front of revered hierarch Wu Ji in the blink of an eye. With a cold expression, he said, that Suofeng actually betrayed us and led an army into the divine nation's imperial city. I'll kill him now and be back soon. Revered god Wu Ji's eyes twitched in disbelief. Who would dare to go against the realm lord's will and betray the divine kingdom? Unless his cultivation was close to the realm lord level and he had no choice but to betray in order to save his life. Alright, you go back first. Revered god Wu Ji knew that it was humiliating to be betrayed by an expert from the mother world. He didn't force Shui Wudi to stay. Shui Wudi heard and immediately left with a group of experts from the Snow Country's divine world. There were about a few hundred supreme gods and 3 pseudo-realm lords. They were considered the core force. With that, the Western Desert strength was reduced by a third. This was the result that Yi Qinghan's clone wanted. He wanted to buy time for the main body and reduce his burden. He wanted to separate them and kill them slowly. Boiling the frog in warm water. Whoever could last until the end would be the winner. Boom! Hua! Shui Wudi tore through the sky and distorted space. He traveled thousands of miles in an instant and appeared in the Great Wasteland Domain half a day later. The Great Wasteland Domain was empty. Yi Qinghan had already brought the Snow Country's divine world into the Snow Country's divine world and occupied the divine world's holy city. The war must break out in the Snow Country's divine world and let Shui Wudi have a taste of his own medicine. Giving him a taste of his own medicine. Yi Qinghan waited in the imperial city. The army was stationed there, forming a powerful fortification. There were tens of millions of soldiers. The armies of the Snow Country and the divine world were all subdued. If they didn't submit, they would die. The 2 military experts were personally in charge of the army. Although they weren't as strong as Ling Yan, if they worked together with Yi Qinghan, they might be able to defeat Shui Wudi. At this moment, the left martial residence's army that had been dispersed by the divine bird rushed over from all directions. They gathered again and their strong battle intent soared into the sky. They seemed to want to fight to the death with Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan felt gratified when he saw that there were almost no casualties among the 3 million soldiers. Our enemy is Shui Wudi, the high and mighty realm lord who doesn't put ordinary creatures in his eyes. Are you afraid? Yi Qinghan looked down at the army and asked in a deep voice. No. Whoosh! The army of 10 million roared and their aura spread in all directions. More than 10 million soldiers, 2 military experts, and a terrifying existence with great battle prowess. It was enough to challenge the prestige of a realm lord. Shui Wudi was as fast as lightning in the Great Wasteland Domain. He brought experts and couldn't wait to rush into the Snow Country's divine world and turn Yi Qinghan into ashes. And in another forbidden land, the divine bird seemed to have sensed Yi Qinghan's clone. It rushed out with its followers and shouted, "Brothers, I'll take you to the holy city to make a fortune. Follow me." Luo Bufan and the other generals listened to the divine bird and didn't have any doubts. If the divine bird said they could make a fortune, then they would definitely make a fortune. Therefore, they brought the divine bird and rushed to the holy city. Chapter 1494. Outside the holy city, tens of millions of soldiers were gathered. World-opening crossbows and large-scale crossbows were all deployed, ready to face Xue Wudi. Large amounts of resources were allocated to the army, and even the treasury was emptied. The ninth prince was angry, but he didn't dare to say anything. He could only listen to Yi Qinghan and became a puppet emperor. The sects, villages, and even small cities near the holy city had all fled. The war between the supreme realm lord and the entire empire would flatten countless mountains and rivers. Many people would die. No one dared to participate in their war. Yi Qinghan sat on the armchair. He seemed to be resting with his eyes closed, but he was actually bitterly cultivating the 9 swords of the giant blood race. In the boundless sea of consciousness, a tiny person was brandishing a giant sword on a vast star. Each sword was faster and stronger than the last. Hua! Boom! The first sword broke open a 10-meter wide gorge. The second sword broke open a 100-meter wide gorge. It was incomparably deep. The third sword was world-shaking. Dark clouds covered the primal chaos world. Lightning flashed, and it was as though the clouds were burning. The fourth sword, Yi Qinghan didn't seem to move, but his soul spirit was rapidly depleting. His face gradually turned pale, and even the world energy in his body was rapidly depleting. Sweat fell like rain, dripping onto the stone floor. Yi Qinghan didn't move at all, but the pressure in the sky became abnormally terrifying. Dong dong dong. The soldiers standing near Yi Qinghan felt their heartbeats become abnormal. It was as though they had encountered an incomprehensible situation, causing them to feel fear. The fifth sword. Boom! This sword was condensed with 70% of his soul spirit and pierced down from the sky. Boom! Hua! The huge star was directly sliced apart by this sword. The sword chi was swift and fierce, causing sand and stones to fly in all directions. Hoo hoo hoo, Yi Qinghan breathed out a mouthful of turbid air. His eyes suddenly opened, and the sweat on his forehead was bigger than raindrops. His black hair fluttered, and his chest heaved up and down. Although this move wasn't his limit, it was very difficult for him to use the sixth move. If he didn't have any apprehensions, he might be able to use the sixth move, but he definitely wouldn't have any strength to resist. In the face of a strong enemy, he definitely could not cultivate without restraint. Yi Qinghan gave up on attacking again. Instead, he quietly recovered his god power and mental energy. Cultivating the 5 swords had exhausted his soul to the extreme, and his mental energy was depleted. It was indeed worthy of being a forbidden technique of the giant blood tribe. Even if he broke through to the world lord level, he would at most be able to use 8 swords. To him, the 9th sword was a forbidden technique that required him to consume his life force to complete. What a powerful giant blood race! Yi Qinghan's entire body was limp and weak. It was as if the 5th sword had sucked away all the world power in his body. He was exhausted and his blood was depleted. The smell of sweat permeated the air, but it wasn't unpleasant. His body was already in a perfect state and there weren't many impurities in his body. Instead, under the evaporation of his sweat, there was a fragrance of great blood. Zhu Wuxin and Ji Gu were very nervous. During these days, they had been standing on the city walls. They ate and slept on the city walls, preparing for Xue Wudi's arrival at any time. At this moment, when they looked at Yi Qinghan, they felt that it was inconceivable. He was clearly at the peak of the pseudo-world lord realm and was half a step away from the absolute circle. Why was the aura he emitted so terrifying? A ray of golden light enveloped the heavenly river. It was like a great path that connected the heavens, stretching from the border to the outskirts of the holy city. The aura of a world lord covered the heavenly river. A strand of divine sense could suppress 10,000 Daos. With a wave of his hand, starlight would gather. Whine. The heavens and earth were restless. Sounds of nature could be heard as if it was welcoming the arrival of a world lord. The entire divine world of Snow Country was moving up and down. Xue Wudi was indeed worthy of being the world lord of Snow Country. Every blade of grass and every tree here was moving up and down with him. However, the only regret was that he had lost control over the humans of Snow Country. The human heart was unpredictable. The imperial family was heartless and had lost the hearts of the people. Just that one heartless action of Emperor Shui Yan was enough to make the Snow World army change sides. Yi Qinghan opened his deep eyes. With a wave of his hand, Emperor Yi appeared beside him. The sound of the zither was vast and mighty. It was like 10,000 horses galloping, causing one's blood to become restless. Yi Qinghan stood up. His eyes pierced through the heavenly river and crushed all illusions. He stared in the direction of the great wasteland domain. An absolute battle intent accompanied the aura of the army and rushed into the clouds. Gather power. Focus. At this moment, Yi Qinghan began to fight for Xue Wudi's control of Snow Country's divine world. His aura was like a rainbow, crushing everything. A wave of qi swept across and rushed into the distance. The greatest advantage of a world lord was to control the world. They could mobilize the power of the world to fight against their enemies. Who could fight against a world? This was the reason why a fake world lord couldn't fight back against a world lord. Unfortunately, Yi Qinghan was also a world lord. Although he couldn't unleash the true power of a world lord, it was enough for him to fight against Xue Wudi for control of the world. At this moment, both sides were fighting and their auras were fluctuating. The army roared and was about to collapse. Left Marshal. Left Marshal. When the army roared in unison and supported Yi Qinghan, Xue Wudi could hear it from billions of miles away. Because this was his mother world, he felt as if his heart had been gouged out. He was so angry that he almost vomited blood. His own people had betrayed him and instead helped a person who came out of nowhere. At this moment, Xue Wudi was a little suspicious of Yi Qinghan's identity. He felt that his appearance was a little strange. His ability to move people's hearts was a little too strong. The army's aura, Emperor Ye's support, the army's blood and qi were surging, and Yi Qinghan was also supporting Yi Qinghan. At this moment, Yi Qinghan was definitely at the peak of this world. Even if he fused with his original body, the power he could unleash wouldn't be much more than this. Yi Qinghan stood proudly on the top of the city wall. He held violent sword in his hand. His tall and straight body faced the wind. Only his battle robe was cold. The impact of this scene made the army even more excited. I brought you to defeat the ultimate martial realm, and I can also bring you to defeat Xue Wudi. Heaven and earth are not benevolent, neither are the gods. I am willing to dye this land red with blood. In the name of equal heaven battle lord, I am willing to see the scorching sun of the 9 heavens. I swear in the name of Left Marshal to lead everyone to unify the 9 worlds. I will lead the brothers of the realm army to embark on the path of immortality and tear apart the bastard who controls the fate of the 9 worlds. Yi Qinghan raised his saber and roared. His divine robe fluttered and shook the sky. He tore apart the golden path and cut off Xue Wudi's path. Boom boom boom. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. Heaven and earth roared as if in response, as if in anger, as if cheering. The heavenly axiom couldn't control the 9 worlds. Yi Qinghan knew, and so did the realm lords of the 7 worlds. Someone was in control. Although they didn't know who it was, only Yi Qinghan dared to resist. At the top of the 9 worlds, there seemed to be a pair of eyes watching Yi Qinghan and the world. The fate of all living things was being stirred up by that pair of invisible hands. They couldn't control their own lives. Xue Wudi's dignified and vigorous face appeared in front of everyone. However, the army's aura had been mobilized to the highest level by Yi Qinghan. It was as if Xue Wudi was a demon and they were the saviors. Their hearts were extremely strong. Chapter 1495. Outside the sacred city, under the sky, a majestic aura shrouded an area of 1,000,000 miles. The surroundings were so quiet that it made one's hair stand on end. Xue Wudi, the person who once ruled Snow Country, was still the same. However, he abandoned Wanling and was finally taken advantage of by Yi Qinghan. His old and majestic face had a trace of redness. His blood was boiling and he was burning with anger. He stared at Yi Qinghan, Ji Gu, and the army. They never thought that Ling Yan's disciple, Ji Gu, would betray them. Whoosh whoosh whoosh. The army breathed heavily. The crossbows in their hands were fully loaded. They were all aimed at Xue Wudi in the sky, waiting for the commander's order. Ji Gu did not feel guilty. He calmly looked up at Xue Wudi. As the saying goes, those who walk different paths cannot work together. Moreover, his ambition was to unify the 9 worlds. Following Xue Wudi would be the end of his life. It was impossible for him to surpass Ling Yan. Zhu Wuxin had no sense of belonging to Xue Wudi. Everything he had was given to him by Yi Qinghan. At this moment, his eyes were firm. He held the divine sword tightly and waited for Yi Qinghan's order. The army only obeyed orders. At this moment, they did not have any other thoughts. Xue Wudi glared at Ji Gu and asked coldly, Ji Gu, your master just died and you betrayed him with outsiders. Are you worthy of Ling Yan? You know better than anyone why my master died. Back then, you organized the 7 worlds to attack the great wilderness. Your purpose was not to unify the 9 worlds, but to kill the experts. Now that others are taking revenge, I don't want to say more. But you know that you are partly responsible for my master's death. Ji Gu replied in a low voice. Unify the 9 worlds? Who can do that? If the desolate lord was not powerful, how could the great wilderness war happen? Your master did that to protect himself and Snow Country from disaster. Are you blaming us for starting the war? Xue Wudi asked angrily. Of course not. War is inevitable. I am called Ji Gu because I will stop war with martial arts. Starting a selfish war and starting a war to unify the 9 worlds and make the 9 worlds completely peaceful are 2 different things. Xue Realm Lord, you and I have different views and ideals. Therefore, I will not serve you. Master must have regretted it. Ji Gu explained calmly. Are you determined to betray me? Xue Wudi took a deep breath, stared at Ji Gu, and asked coldly. Humph. Ji Gu gave a muffled snort and said indifferently, never pledged loyalty, how can there be any betrayal? Xue Wudi was infuriated, but Yi Qinghan did not give the order to attack. Instead, he looked at Xue Wudi with a sinister smile, deliberately making him give up in despair. The humiliation of being betrayed by the entire Snow Country and God Realm was much better than beating him up. Yi Qinghan grinned, revealing 2 rows of white teeth. He stared at Xue Wudi with his deep eyes and smiled evilly, Snow Realm Lord. Oh, no, you can only be called Xue Wudi. Because the master of the Snow Country is no longer you. But don't worry, the Emperor of the Snow Country is still a member of the Xue clan. But you don't have the right to control him. Xue Wudi was furious. He stared at Yi Qinghan and wanted to get closer. However, he could sense the danger. Even if each of them shot an arrow, it would take a lot of energy. Moreover, this so-called Marshal Zhuo didn't look like a good person. Zhuo Feng, who are you? What is your purpose? Xue Wudi asked coldly. Purpose? Yi Qinghan slowly stood up and replied provocatively, of course to become the Realm Lord. I don't want to be a slave or be hunted down. You are the desolate lord. Xue Wudi wasn't very sure, but he said firmly. Who doesn't know how to frame someone? Since you said Mr. Ling Yan was killed by the desolate lord, I didn't even see Ling Yan. How could I kill him? Moreover, where did Ling Yan die? I have an alibi. Yi Qinghan said calmly. He died in the Western Desert Impasse. He was surrounded and killed. The enemy had at least 7 or 8 pseudo-world weapons. Besides your marshals or residents, who else has so many pseudo-world weapons? Xue Wudi looked at Ji Ge coldly. He didn't believe that Ji Ge would still be willing to help him after framing Zhuo Feng. As expected, Ji Ge had his eyes on Yi Qinghan. If he really was the desolate lord and killed Ling Yan, even if he didn't take revenge, he wouldn't help him. Yi Qinghan smiled faintly and shook his head. After self-destructing, he didn't appear in the Western Desert. How could we surround him? Then where are you? Xue Wudi immediately asked. The Void Ocean. I also brought a creature from the Void Ocean. It has already transformed. You'll know once you ask. Yi Qinghan waved his hand and summoned the silver snake female cultivator. Then, he said calmly, right, I also met 4 realm lords in the Void Ocean. They seem to be chasing something. It should be the desolate lord you mentioned. The silver snake female cultivator was stunned. She didn't understand the situation, but she could see that the person standing in front of her was a realm lord. That was an existence like a heavenly beast. Looking at Yi Qinghan's aura, it seemed like he was going to fight a heavenly beast. Whether he was from the Sea clan or not, Xue Wudi could tell at a glance. The silver snake female cultivator's sea aura was especially strong. Ji Ge wasn't stupid. He could naturally see that Yi Qinghan wasn't lying. Xue Wudi was just trying to drive a wedge between them. Xue Wudi saw that he couldn't drive Ji Ge to betray Yi Qinghan, but he didn't want to fight Yi Qinghan to the death. Both sides would suffer. Even if he won, the entire snow country would be crippled. So what if he wanted a crippled world? Xue Wudi's eyes flashed. He stared at Yi Qinghan and said, since you're from snow country, you have to understand that your lives were given by this old man. If you betray me, it's treason. Since you're young, this old man won't argue with you. As long as you get back on track, this old man is willing to accept you as a disciple and train you to become a true realm lord. Ha 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 ha. Yi Qinghan laughed wildly. His momentum suppressed the 9 heavens. The heavy craze in his hand almost flew out of his hand. The shock caused the blood of the army to surge. They couldn't wait to fight to the death with the realm lord. The realm lord is not the creator of the world. The world you created is in your sea of consciousness, and the lives of the people there are bestowed by you. As for the snow country and the divine world, they are merely nurtured by the heavens. We are the masters of our own lives. You were merely born a few years earlier than us, and your cultivation is slightly stronger. Don't be so self-righteous as to think that you are the Father God and want the entire world to respect you. When you are heartless and treat the world as your slaves, your fate will come to an end. As soon as Yi Qinghan finished laughing, he stared at Xue Wudi and revealed the Realm Lord's secret. The Realm Lord wasn't the owner of the world. He was just a person who had cultivated to a certain realm. He wasn't the god of creation. Even if he was, he would only create the world in his own sea of consciousness. It had nothing to do with the 9 worlds. Xue Wudi frowned. The sector lords had always preached that the world was created by them. The sector lords were the Father God and no one could disobey them. This was why the sector lords of the 7 realms had such a high reputation in the inner realms. Their status was different from that of the desolate lord. Yi Qinghan finally angered Xue Wudi when he revealed this secret. Since you refuse a toast only to be forced to drink a forfeit, then this old man won't be polite anymore. At most, I'll just create a complete world. You bunch of ants, betraying this old man means that you'll all die. Xue Wudi shouted angrily. He waved his hand and pulled out a divine sword from the void. The might of a world weapon rushed in all directions. Chapter 1496. The boundary sword was unsheathed, and the sword chi rushed into the clouds. Xue Wudi stood out, and the army felt that they were facing an undefeatable existence. You can't hold it in anymore. Yi Qinghan smiled evilly, which made people's hair stand on end. Xue Wudi was furious, and he didn't want to be entangled with Yi Qinghan anymore. He gripped the divine sword and said coldly, "Since you want to die, I'll grant you your wish. Don't be so agitated. You'll find out later that you're wrong. You should thank me." Ha ha ha, Yi Qinghan laughed and waved his hand behind him. "Come up. Let's see what the Empress Dowager's attitude is." Just then, Empress Xue walked out, swaying her slender waist. She was very upright and looked like a motherly model, but she didn't lose her charm. Men swallowed their saliva. Empress Xue looked serious. She clenched her fists and rested them on her belly. She looked very orthodox and was definitely not a woman from a small family. Xue Wudi couldn't figure out what Yi Qinghan wanted to do. He stared at Empress Xue coldly. If Empress Xue asked him for help, the army would be in chaos. It might be a good thing, so he endured it. Imperial concubine Xue raised her head and stared at Xue Wudi. She cleared her throat and asked calmly, "Respected ancestor, please don't meddle in the affairs of the empire. Just a few months ago, you personally appointed a group of imperial elders to supervise the emperor. They meddled in the affairs of the empire, causing the empire to fall into ruin and the people to suffer. The dignified imperial elders sacrificed the lives of thousands of soldiers in order to snatch the pseudo-realm weapons of the frontline soldiers. Such vicious imperial elders should be abolished. Today's matter was personally ordered by His Majesty. He is fair and just, filial and respectful to his ancestors. He doesn't want to argue with you anymore, so he sent me here to tell you that he hopes you can behave yourself." Xue Wudi's eyes widened and cold flames shot out. His face was ferocious and the sword in his hand was trembling. He did not expect that the emperor's mother would describe the royal family in such a way in public. Xue Wudi's blood was boiling and he was almost confused. Yi Qinghan saw that his consciousness was in a trance. This was the effect he wanted. He immediately ordered, "Attack! Fire! Whoosh 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 dot whoosh! Whoosh!" That it was not just tens of thousands of arrows. Millions of crossbows shot out at the same time. Large realm-opening crossbow bolts pierced through the void, blotting out the sky and covering the sun. The earth instantly darkened. Xue Wudi was surrounded. Boom! Xue Wudi roared. This time, he was truly infuriated by Yi Qinghan. His mind was about to go haywire. The primordial energy in his body erupted, and his aura soared to the stars. The power of his realm actually shattered all the incoming crossbow bolts and bolts. Not even the large bolts managed to escape. Bang! Whoosh! A blast of chi spread out for thousands of miles. The enchantment outside the holy city surrounded the city tightly, blocking Xue Wudi's chi. The earth cracked, the mountains and rivers were destroyed, and the entire holy city was shaking. A realm lord was still a realm lord. Even with thousands of realm armies supporting the city, it was still difficult to block the attack of a realm lord. Boom. A sword pierced through the clouds and landed on the enchantment. The enchantment was directly pierced through, but it did not shatter. The sword entered the holy city, but Xue Wudi was blocked. Whoosh! The sword chi pierced through the holy city. The sharp divine sword chi spread out in all directions, killing thousands of civilians. However, it was blocked by the army in the end. Ka! Ka! Yi Qinghan soared into the sky. His saber seemed to want to destroy the heavens. The space was directly cut open. It was unstoppable. The saber light slashed at Xue Wudi. The sharp saber light was enough to make Xue Wudi feel a sense of crisis. He immediately retreated from the sky above the enchantment and pulled away from the holy city. Yi Qinghan returned to the city wall in the blink of an eye. He did not even need to give the order. Zhu Wuxin and Zhi Gu gave the order. Fire! Whoosh! 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 This kind of indiscriminate attack was to exhaust Xue Wudi's energy, to make him tired and unable to continue. Countless arrows flew past him. The Qi force pulled at his divine robe, forcing him to shatter them one by one. A bunch of ants. Even if you have 10 million more, you are still ants. Xue Wudi was furious. In his eyes, only Yi Qinghan could cause him damage. If he did not cooperate with the army, he would be killed instantly. Whoosh! Whoosh! Snow wind slash. Whoosh! Snow danced in the air. Every snowflake carried terrifying killing intent. Pine! 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 Every snowflake turned into a sword chi that shot towards the arrows. Although it was just a snowflake, the damage it caused was not weaker than a pseudo-sector lord's explosive power. It clashed with the arrows and actually suppressed them. Moreover, it still had the energy to attack the enchantment. Boom! Waves of chi rippled in the air and clashed with the enchantment. The tremors caused the blood of the army to churn. Some of the weaker ones coughed out blood and were sent flying. Yi Qinghan held violent sword and did not attack again. He was like a wolf hunting for food. He did not move, but when he moved, the heavens would collapse and the earth would shatter. His sharp eyes shot out a terrifying light. Violent sword chi flowed and the cold light froze one's heart. Sha! Sha! Yi Qinghan bowed slightly and crossed his legs. He watched as the divine power of the army poured out and formed an inescapable net towards Xue Wudi, forcing him to use his world energy to tear it apart. 10 million soldiers could not defeat a sector lord. Most of the border army turned pale. Whine. Hum. Emperor Ye's zither sound suddenly surged, shaking people's hearts. It revolved around the sacred city. Strands of melody turned into sound blades that pierced through the air and arrived in front of Xue Wudi. The sound blades seemed to have more destructive power than the arrows. Moreover, they appeared strangely, making it hard to grasp. Kill! Just at this moment, Zhi Gu grabbed the chance and threw out his spear. The spear tore through the river and drew out flames towards Xue Wudi. Xiu! Xiu! The spears were like rain, rushing into the sky and forcing the heavens to back down. There were too many, even ants could bite an elephant to death. With so many people attacking, if a pseudo-sector lord great perfection dared to attack, he would definitely die on the spot. However, Xue Wudi was still as steady as Mount Tai. The sword in his hand flashed, and the sword shadows split into 10,000. Snowflakes covered the sky, blocking the vision of everyone. Yi Qinghan was shocked. He closed his eyes and sent his sector lord consciousness out in all directions, searching for Xue Wudi's location. Everyone, listen to my orders. Do not attack recklessly. Yi Qinghan said solemnly. The army instantly quietened down. Sizzle. The snowflakes landed on the enchantment and the enchantment was actually corroded. It let out a terrifying sound, causing the army's morale to drop. This was Xue Wudi's snow slaughter 9 heavens. It was extremely powerful. Yi Qinghan had experienced it before. The snowflakes were consuming the enchantment's energy and Xue Wudi's energy at the same time. Southeast, attack. Rumble. Hua. Another wave of arrows rained down. Xue Wudi thought that his location was untraceable. However, he was disappointed because Yi Qinghan found his location. Chapter 1497. Shio shio shio. Millions of arrows and spears covered the sky, piercing through the snowflakes towards Xue Wuti, forcing him to use all his strength to defend. Yi Qinghan was only responsible for finding Xue Wuti's approximate location. The army then attacked indiscriminately, not allowing Xue Wuti to escape. Snow was drifting, bringing with it a sharp killing intent. There was a barrier outside the holy city, so everyone inside the city could feel it clearly. Xue Wuti stared at the sacred city. It wasn't that he couldn't break the barrier, but he was worried about Yi Qinghan. Yi Qinghan's lethality was too strong. Xue Wuti didn't dare to use his full strength. Otherwise, if Yi Qinghan seized the opportunity, he would lose half his life. The number of soldiers was more than one peak sector lord, so it wouldn't be of much use. Unless it was a military saint like Ling Yan and Yan Ao, they could form an army of millions. Not to mention defending against a sector lord, they could even kill one. However, Ji Gu and Zhu Wuxin couldn't do that. But with the city protecting formation and Yi Qinghan's intimidation, they could still defend this place. The loyal soldiers that Xue Wuti brought stood far away, not daring to get too close. Otherwise, it would be hard to resist the attack of the army. At this moment, Xue Wuti made up his mind. He retreated a few hundred li and said to Xue Chong and the others, "I need your help. I need to use my peak strength to break the city. You just need to help me defend against Zhuo Feng for 3 breaths of time." Dozens of experts were pale. Defending for 3 breaths of time was equivalent to risking their lives. Xue Chang's cultivation was very strong, and he was also a burly man. He looked very domineering, so he agreed without hesitation. "Old ancestor, don't worry. Even if I have to self-destruct, I can still stop Zhuo Feng," Xue Chong said seriously. Xue Wuti was very satisfied. But soon, he smiled and looked into the distance. A flame rushed into the clouds. Sword energy rushed into the clouds. There was one more expert on the battlefield. Mu Fengyun, Xue Wuti's chief disciple. He had already broken through to pseudo-sector Lord Realm. His fighting power was monstrous. Xue Wuti sneered when he saw Mu Fengyun. He growled, "Zhuo Feng, I'm going to turn you into ashes today. Master, I'll help you defend Zhuo Feng for 3 breaths of time. You just have to focus on attacking the city. He won't be able to hurt you." Mu Fengyun was proud. He had long wanted to fight with Yi Qinghan. This was a good opportunity for him to fight. His fighting spirit soared. "My good disciple, today you and I will fight side by side." Xue Wuti threw his head back and laughed. Cold light flashed in his eyes as he stared at the holy city's barrier. He started to gather the world's energy and mobilized the entire divine world. Boom! Boom! The pressure enveloped the heavenly river, and it was deafening. It was as if the entire world was about to collapse. Yi Qinghan took a deep breath. He knew that Xue Wuti was about to explode. The bloody battle would flatten this holy city. Set up the formation. Once the city is breached, defend the formation and borrow the momentum to fight alongside me. Even if we can't kill him, we have to at least crush the people around him, Yi Qinghan said resolutely. Boom! 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 The heaven and earth rumbled and the earth trembled. Dark clouds covered the sky and lightning flashed, illuminating the depths of the clouds into flames. The world's energy intertwined with the lightning and formed a light beam that gathered above Xue Wuti. The earth was about to collapse. This was the true realm lord. Once he was angry, no one could stop him. Xue Wuti's black and white hair danced in the wind. The sharp sword in his hand was surrounded by the world's energy and lightning. It produced a power that could destroy the entire world. Xue country's divine world was mobilized by him. He had taken the initiative. Boom! Boom! Yi Qinghan was extremely nervous. He wasn't Xue Wuti's opponent in the first place. With such a huge gap between their realms, if Xue Wudi took the initiative, the following battle would be even more brutal. Countless people would die. Although Xue country and Great Wasteland Domain were enemies, the Xue country's army was fighting for him. He wasn't willing to sacrifice himself like this. Whine! Whine! Zhong Kuang trembled violently, as though it was about to explode. A violent aura tore through the void and rushed into the clouds. It began a struggle with the sharp sword, using its power to suppress the sword. Whine! Yi Qinghan's body suddenly exploded. He was about 10 feet tall. When Yao, the stone sword on his arm, broke free from the bloodline restraints and soared into the sky. The stone sword unleashed an even more powerful aura. It seemed to be even more brutal than the sharp sword in Xue Wudi's hand. The two great boundary weapons accompanied Yi Qinghan as he fought for the world's power. Whoosh! Whine! Yi Qinghan turned into a stream of light and disappeared. However, his terrifying eyes stared at Xue Wudi. Xue Wudi's aura stagnated. He was shocked by Yi Qinghan's change. The blood of the giant bloodline was boiling. Accompanied by the realm lord's powerful soul, the stone sword seemed to have its own soul. It didn't need the soul to control it and soared into the void. It stared at Xue Wudi with deep hostility. It was waiting for an opportunity to attack. Swa Marshal! Swa Marshal! The army roared, suppressing the fear in their hearts. This was a battle of life and death. Because once Xue Wudi broke through, this army of 10 million would be annihilated. He wouldn't give the traitor any chance. This was the world army, not an ordinary army. Even if most of them were giant gods, the power they could unleash was comparable to a realm lord. Unfortunately, they couldn't work together. This was also the reason why they couldn't win against a realm lord in terms of numbers. Whine! Whine! Ji Gu and Zhu Wuxin waved the military flag and arranged the troops. The army moved quickly and split into two groups. One group was led by Ji Gu and formed the strongest military formation of towering flame, the Flame Formation. The entire army was like a ball of fire that could burn anything. The other group was led by Zhu Wuxin. The great formation he formed was Yan Ao's 8 trigrams world-piercing great formation. Whine! 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 Yi Qinghan bowed slightly, waiting for Xue Wudi to break through the defensive array. Even if he had to waste a little bit of his strength, it would still be good. In a battle between realm lords, the slightest difference could lead to a huge difference. Hence, Yi Qinghan had been provoking Xue Wudi from the very beginning to exhaust his strength. You are not human. You are one of the top 10 foreign races before the 9 worlds were divided, the giant blood race. Whine! 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 Yi Qinghan raised the corner of his mouth and replied coldly, I am Zhuo Feng, a native of the Snow Country. I can use all 7 origins of the Snow Country. The reason why I have the bloodline of the Giant Blood Tribe is that I obtained the stone sword of the Giant Blood Tribe by chance. My heart and my soul are both human. Xue Wudi, if you want to fight, then fight. Chapter 1498. Obviously, Ji Gu had no way out, and neither did Zhu Wuxin. If they switched sides now, Xue Wudi would definitely settle the score later. Ji Gu and Zhu Wuxin's attitude made Xue Wudi even more desperate. He no longer had any hope. He gathered his aura to the strongest state, and he raised his sword to release the power of the world. Hua! The rainbow of sword qi pierced through the mountains and rivers, slashing down from the void. The sky was split into 2, and a black hole devoured everything. It was as if the Snow Country and the divine world were about to be split apart. This kind of power of the Realm Master was not something that mortals could contend against. Against the Realm Master, the monstrous genius Yi Qinghan, who wielded 2 boundary instruments, could stand a chance. However, he would definitely need the support of an army and the help of Ren Huangyi to be on par with the Realm Master. Boom! 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 The sky was like a piece of rotten wood. It was cut in half by the divine sword, and it slashed down on the barrier. The sword aura was unstoppable. It split the holy city into 2, and even the formation of the 2 armies was torn apart. The sword aura rushed into the galaxy and collided with the energy of the army. A heat wave rushed into the void, and the entire holy city collapsed. Those who were slightly weaker were all shaken to death. The powerful families had no choice but to release their divine power and gather the army's barrier to form a wish power that covered half of the holy city. The supreme formation of the imperial city was activated, and a divine light shot into the sky like a sword. Boom! Yi Qinghan took advantage of Xue Wudi's stagnant aura and slashed at him. At the same time, Mu Fengyun, Xue Chong, and dozens of experts rushed towards Yi Qinghan, trying to stop him. They only needed 3 breaths of time for Xue Wudi to recover. However, Yi Qinghan ignored their attacks, as if he wanted to die together with Xue Wudi. Xue Wudi seemed to trust his disciple, Xue Chong, and the others very much. As soon as he unleashed his sword, he began to gather the power of the world and prepared to retreat. However, he seemed to have trusted the wrong person because Yi Qinghan's speed was unimaginably fast. Mu Fengyun could not stop him. Xue Chong and the others could not stop him either. They chased after Yi Qinghan, and their swords pierced through the rainbow, aiming for Yi Qinghan's head and back. If he did not dodge, he would die. Xue Wudi. The 3 breaths of time you want is impossible. Whoosh! The stone sword sped forward on its own, not to stop Xue Chong and Mu Fengyun, but to kill Xue Wudi. Yi Qinghan held berserk in his hand and cut open the void. His figure disappeared immediately, and when he reappeared, he was right in front of Xue Wudi. Xue Wudi was shocked. He blocked with his divine sword and clashed fiercely with Zhong Quan. His corporeal body seemed to have suffered a real sector lord's attack. The bones in his hand almost broke. Buzz buzz buzz. The boundary treasure divine sword was trembling violently and emitting an ear-piercing howl. Xue Wudi's qi and blood were not flowing smoothly to begin with. After receiving such a blow, he immediately coughed up blood and flew backwards. Whoosh! The stone sword drew an arc and stabbed towards Xue Wudi's back. The violent sword qi slammed into his back. After taking on 2 attacks in a row, Xue Wudi's body was distorted and so was the space-time. Ah! Xue Wudi screamed in pain. His body tore through the void and disappeared in front of Yi Qinghan. Boom boom boom. Mu Fengyun was the first to arrive from behind. He slashed his sword at Yi Qinghan's back. Hum! The divine sword seemed to have hit the boundary treasure. Although it knocked Yi Qinghan away, it did not pierce his corporeal body. Puff! Although Yi Qinghan had the feather spirit robe, he was still badly injured by the sword. The giant blood cells in his body were all exploding. 1/10 of his life force was gone. His spine was almost broken and 4 of his ribs were broken. Boom boom boom. Yi Qinghan's corporeal body was thrown far away like a kite with a broken string. Die for me. Just as Yi Qinghan lost control of his corporeal body, he turned around and slashed back. Zhong Quan, with the power of the world, cut through the spacetime with a thunderous force. The sword light broke the pseudo-boundary treasure in Mu Fengyun's hand. Then, Zhong Quan left his hand and pierced through Mu Fengyun's body. Together with his sword, he attacked Xue Chong and the others. Boom! Although Mu Fengyun was strong and was one of the strongest of the younger generation, he was too confident. He could not withstand a single blow from Yi Qinghan. Boom! The moment Zhong Kuang pierced through Mu Fengyan's body, the thick power of the world shattered his corporeal body. A wave of air surged in all directions and knocked Xue Chong and the others away. Dozens of experts were like old men in front of him. They could not withstand a single blow. Ah! Xue Chong and the others were killed by the sword light. Their corporeal bodies were shattered and their blood dyed the mountains and rivers. At this moment, Yi Qinghan also crashed into the ground, creating a large crater in the ground. Hum! Bang! The stone sword circled back to Yi Qinghan and stabbed into the ground. It was like a loyal guard protecting its master. Sword, come! Yi Qinghan gritted his teeth and rushed out of the ground. He waved his hand and Zhong Kuang rushed out of the blood dance and returned to his hand. Xue Wuti disappeared without a trace. Snow covered the sky with killing intent. It was as if every snowflake could kill. The snow was falling and the wind was howling. Yi Qinghan held the sword and knelt on one knee. Blood dripped from the corner of his mouth. His eyes were like an eagle's as he scanned the surroundings, looking for traces of Xue Wuti. Xue Wuti had destroyed the defensive formation, fought against 10 million alone, and killed tens of thousands of realm army soldiers with a single slash. This kind of fighting prowess could no longer be considered human. The army might have formed the strongest formation, but right now, there was panic and despair in their eyes. Everyone looked at Yi Qinghan with anticipation. He was the only one who could stop Xue Wuti now. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan stood up slowly. His soul was highly concentrated and he controlled the area. As long as Xue Wuti entered his territory, he would be discovered. May the sacred city's power of will bless me. May all living beings be of one mind with me and borrow my strength. Let me calm the world. Yi Qinghan raised his sword and roared. His voice was vast and mighty like thunder. Whoosh! The sacred city's army raised their spears in unison and released their aura. The power of will soared into the sky and gathered behind Yi Qinghan. Whoosh! Yi Qinghan's body grew taller again, and the power of will behind him formed a giant that was no different from his real body. His figure gradually solidified, standing tall between heaven and earth. He raised his hand slightly, wanting to pluck the sun, moon, and stars. Whoosh! The world trembled. Yi Qinghan's aura was like that of a real sector lord. He seized the fortune of heaven and earth and controlled the power of mountains and rivers. His eyes looked down at the world. The world roared and the snow filled with killing intent was purified directly. Impossible! You are the desolate lord. Apart from him, who else would be able to do such a thing? Xue Wuti roared from afar. He knew that this was the best time to kill Yi Qinghan, but he did not dare to rush over. The desolate lord's name was enough to make the world submit. Back then, 7 sector lords had to work together to fight against him. Now that he was alone, he was scared out of his wits. Xue Wuti, that's enough. You are a sector lord. If you want to sow discord, you should find a better excuse. First, you call me a foreign race. Now, you call me the desolate lord. Who will you call me next time? Yi Qinghan's voice was deep. The giant shadow behind him actually spoke human language. It raised its hand and tore through space and time. It grabbed at Xue Wuti's real body. Its power caused time to flow backward. But you won't have the chance this time. I will kill you today. Yi Qinghan gathered the power of will of millions of people and gathered all their fortune into one person. He could instantly unleash the power in their bodies. Chapter 1499. The power of will gathered from tens of millions of people formed a giant that could support the heavens and the earth. Its giant hand crushed the spacetime, causing the spacetime to flow in reverse. Hua! The giant hand turned into a palm and slammed toward Xue Wuti. The scattered energy of tens of millions of people was gathered by Yi Qinghan. This was a miracle in itself. It was heaven-defying. Together with the soul of a sector lord, the two boundary weapons stacked. Shui Wudi was furious. Desolate Master. You are definitely the Desolate Master. Shui Wudi was furious. He scolded Ji Gu, you bastard. He is the Desolate Master. He is definitely the Desolate Master. Boom. What he got in response was a fierce attack from the shadow behind Yi Qinghan. The palm was thousands of miles away, but it caused the void to collapse. Hum. Shui Wudi gathered his courage and looked at Yi Qinghan ferociously. He roared to get rid of his fear. He raised his sword and swung it at the giant palm. Boom. The power of the world tore at each other. The outside of Sacred City was flattened. Yi Qinghan's body was as steady as Mount Tai. He held his blade and went against the flow. His domineering aura soared into the sky. The cold flame in his eyes was enough to burn everything. He looked at Shui Wudi. Swoosh. 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 Countless blade lights covered the sky and intertwined with the snow. The snow was shattered by the blade lights. The killing intent enveloped the world as if it was the end of the world. Sky-cleaving sword, first sword. Yi Qinghan held violent sword and led the shadow behind him to raise his sword. The momentum was formed in an instant. The first sword roared and split the sky. The sword energy whirlpool swallowed everything. It was extremely fast. In an instant it was beside Shui Wudi. The shadow was too big and it was as fast as light. Shui Wudi couldn't dodge. He could only take it head-on. Boom. Bang. The giant stone sword slammed into the boundary weapon. The power of the world collided with each other, creating a shockwave that spread for thousands of miles. Even if tens of millions of people gathered together, they couldn't crush Shui Wudi. Shui Wudi's old body contained heaven-defying power. He blocked the stone sword and did not back down. Yi Qinghan moved forward with his saber, bringing the giant shadow with him. Every time he and the giant shadow took a step forward, Shui Wudi would have to take a step back. But even so, it was almost impossible for him to take a step forward. Ka ka ka. The ground cracked as Yi Qinghan's veins bulged on his arms. His thighs were trembling. He had fused with the giant shadow, so when the giant shadow was blocked, it was as if he was blocking the attack himself. Thud. Thud. Shui Wudi's expression was ferocious as he was forced to retreat. At this moment, he was fighting against Yi Qinghan and the 10 million soldiers. It wasn't just superposition, it was all the psyche and godly energy of 10 million soldiers gathered in his body. He was using the soul of a sector lord and his perfect body to control the 10 million soldiers. Although he wasn't a sector lord, he was comparable to one. Shui Wudi was suppressed. The morale of the army immediately soared. Everyone gritted their teeth and burst forth with an even stronger will to support Yi Qinghan. Hua! The giant figure suddenly became more solid, and the power it erupted with was no different from a sector lord. With Yi Qinghan's support, it fiercely swung its arm, causing the giant sword to erupt with 10 times its original power. Second sword. Boom! The second sword exploded with 10 times the power in an instant, pushing Shui Wudi back. Third sword. The giant shadow was like a true giant god. It held the giant sword and cut through the shackles. It was domineering and ruthless. The power of this sword was 100 times stronger than the first sword. My world, bless my body. Roar of snow. Shui Wudi's pupils contracted. A round world appeared behind him. It didn't look big, but the space inside was enough to swallow the entire snow country. The power inside was more than 10 million people. Boom. The snow god's sword created waves of snow. The snow dragon roared and the power poured out in an instant. It pressed down on the stone sword like a storm. Bang! Wang. The snow god's sword and the stone sword fiercely clashed in the air. Then, they trembled at extreme speed. The shadow behind Yi Qinghan was almost shattered. His berserk hand was also trembling. The veins on his hand bulged and it was almost broken. Xue Wudi didn't have it easy either. The world behind him shone with divine light. The universe seemed to be about to collapse. It swallowed the power of the 9 worlds for its own use. Hua! Yi Qinghan was pushed back by Xue Wudi. The third sword was directly pushed back by Xue Wudi. This was the time to show the true power of a sector lord. Within 10,000 miles of the sacred city, everything was in ruins. The earth was ravaged. Sand and stones flew everywhere. There was no sign of life. Yi Qinghan stood outside the sacred city. The palaces inside the sacred city had collapsed. Only the palace was still standing. However, the damage was still manageable. Only the weak were shaken to death. Fourth sword. Yi Qinghan stared at Xue Wudi in the distance. His voice was emotionless. It was like the roar of a beast. Hua! In. The sky was moving. The world was shaking. It was like it was shocked by the heaven-cleaving sword. It was crying out in pain. Hong! Xue Wudi brought the world over. He wanted to force Yi Qinghan to retreat so that he wouldn't be able to erupt with his peak strength. Hong 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 hong. At this moment it was like a battle between worlds. Yi Qinghan's blood was boiling. Blood flowed out from his 7 orifices. His blood cells were exploding, providing Yi Qinghan with the most original source of energy. The 2 experts clashed. Flames spewed out and rushed into the galaxy. It was extremely terrifying. Hong hong hong. When the majestic sound of a zither rang out. Emperor Yi closed his eyes to sense Yi Qinghan's soul. He wanted to merge with him and fight together. Renhuang Ye's soul quickly merged with heaven and earth. The entire world seemed to be under her control. Her soul was unimaginably powerful. However, her realm was too weak. She was only at the middle stage of the pseudosector lord realm. The power in her body was a complete mess compared to someone like Yi Qinghan. Wang! Emperor Yi plucked the zither. A tragic sound turned into a sound blade that tore through the void. Xiu. The sound blade pierced through space and disappeared. It then mysteriously appeared in front of Xue Wudi and attacked his eyes. Xue Wudi was shocked. He used his soul intent to shatter the sound blade. However, Emperor Yi wasn't shocked or anxious. He knew that his strength wouldn't affect Xue Wudi much. However, it would be good if he could exhaust some of his strength. It would be a success if he could delay him for half a breath of time. One. Emperor Ye's zither speed increased. The sound blades disappeared in front of him. When they reappeared, they were already in front of Xue Wudi. They were densely packed. Even mosquitoes could annoy people to death, let alone sharp sound blades. Boom! The fourth sword clashed with Xue Wudi. The sound blades turned into dust in the shockwave. It didn't injure Xue Wudi. However, Emperor Yi didn't give up. Sky-cleaving sword, fifth sword. In the name of equal to heaven, I command the 9 worlds. My vision is my domain. Within my domain, I am the master. Gather. Hua! Yi Qinghan was surrounded by a ray of light. His huge back was as dazzling as the sun. Boundless energy instantly exploded. Boom! The giant brought the huge sword and destroyed everything in front of him, drowning Xue Wudi. Pine! Xue Wudi directly enlarged his world and clashed with the huge sword. Shue Wuti instantly spat out blood and flew back. His eyes were filled with disbelief. Chapter 1500. Shue Wuti coughed out blood and flew back. Yi Qinghan didn't have it easy either. He fell head first onto the ground. His illusory figure shook and could collapse at any moment. Pooh! The entire army in the holy city coughed out blood. 50% of the world army knelt on the ground and coughed out blood non-stop. Their wish-power giant suffered from the impact and naturally had to bear the anger of the world lord. Yi Qinghan climbed out from the deep pit. His eyes were dyed red with blood. His nose and mouth were filled with blood. That sword earlier had consumed 70% of the army's strength. His body was almost empty. The sixth sword. How far away was that? If he wanted to use the sixth and seventh sword, he had to reach the peak of pseudo-world lord realm. Yi Qinghan sneered. He coughed out blood and stared at Shue Wuti like a ferocious ghost. Ka ka ka. His monstrous body twisted and his bones cracked. World Lord. Yi Qinghan smirked and looked at Shue Wuti provocatively. He said hoarsely, borrowing the power of heaven and earth, borrowing the power of the world, borrowing the power of all living beings. Although I'm not a world lord, it doesn't mean I can't do it. Boom! Yi Qinghan stood up. The afterimage behind him shattered with a whoosh sound. The army behind him was already crippled. It could only support his fifth sword strike. If he wanted to forcefully use the sixth sword strike, the entire Snow World army would die. Whine! Yi Qinghan stabbed his blade into the ground and walked towards Shue Wuti step by step. Shue Wuti seemed to have aged 1,000,000 years in an instant. His hair was white and his skin was wrinkled and lost its luster. Although he was strong, Yi Qinghan wasn't weak either. Moreover, with two great world treasures in Yi Qinghan's army, what could he do? Sua Feng. I admire you. You have more potential than Mu Fengyun. Follow me and I will treat today's matter as if it never happened. I can even help you reach the World Lord realm. You and I will be master and disciple. Unifying the 9 worlds is not a dream. Shue Wuti gripped the snow god sword tightly. His blood essence dripped onto the ground along with the divine sword, and his vigorous blood essence began to burn. His hoarse voice trembled. He was exhausted. He was old, and the piercing pain in his right rib was unbearable. Back then, the entire right side of his body had been shattered by Yi Qinghan using the Great Wastelands tablet. Although it had been repaired, the hidden injuries were not so easy to heal. If he fought for a long period of time, or if his injuries were reopened, he would not be able to endure it. This wound was caused by Yi Qinghan himself. It was impossible for him not to know. So when he saw Shue Wuti clamp his right rib, he knew that his old injury had relapsed. I'm sorry, but I don't trust you. You're the one who forced me into a dead end, so you'll have to suffer my wrath. Yi Qinghan pressed forward step by step. His speed was getting faster and faster. The berserk saber in his hand roared, causing the mountains and rivers to collapse. The momentum of heaven and earth was forcefully controlled by him. His body kept rising, and the giant with the 7-foot berserk saber pressed down on Shue Wuti with the momentum of the autumn wind sweeping away the fallen leaves. Shue Wuti snorted and retorted with disdain, "You're just at the peak of the pseudo-world lord realm. At most, you're just the soul of a world lord. Let's add another foundation, the soul of a desolate overlord. You can only unleash the power of a low-level world lord. If I want to kill you, it's just a matter of waving my hand. Without the support of the army, let's see if you're stronger in borrowing the momentum of heaven and earth." Wang. The snow god's sword was raised. Snow covered the sky and covered the earth. The dense killing intent shrouded Yi Qinghan, causing the heaven and earth to be covered in snow. The two experts were drowned in the snow. Ji Gu and Zhu Wuxin were coughing out blood. They supported themselves on the broken city walls and stared ahead. It was a deep abyss. The entire holy city was destroyed. Defend, grit our teeth and resist this calamity. Tomorrow, we'll all break through. Ji Gu raised his sword and roared. This time, it wasn't for battle but for self-defense. The battle between the two terrifying existences was enough to flatten this place. Everyone had no choice but to stand up and grit their teeth. Hua! Divine light shrouded the holy city once again. The final struggle of the army couldn't be underestimated. Emperor Yi stayed in the center of the formation. At this moment, his soul couldn't find the traces of Yi Qinghan and Xue Wudi. He could only resign himself to fate. Rumble, rumble, rumble. Hua, hua, hua. The blade and sword qi were like lightning, engaging in the most intense battle in the snow. One couldn't see their figures, only the blade and sword qi. The snow was like a hidden weapon, incomparably sharp. The snowflakes filled with killing intent struck the rocks, directly piercing through them. It was extremely terrifying. A few snowflakes broke through the shackles and struck the energy barrier, causing it to shake violently. Jia Jun's face was pale. Only now did he realize how dangerous it was to participate in the Sector Lord battle. Luckily, Yi Qinghan was in front of him. Otherwise, he would have died today. Rumble. Pang. Hua. After a violent explosion, Yi Qinghan and Xue Wudi were knocked away. Two trails of flames appeared from the friction on the ground. Their clothes were tattered, and their flesh was badly mangled. They had suffered at least a dozen attacks from the opponent. Pooh! Yi Qinghan coughed up blood non-stop. The blood at the corner of his eyes was about to coagulate. However, Xue Wudi was about to go crazy. Yi Qinghan's attacks were always focused on his right rib. It was as if he knew that there was a hidden injury there. Every attack made him dizzy. The pain in his right rib was unbearable. Injury for injury. Although Yi Qinghan was injured, he kept grinning. He thought to himself, I don't believe you can withstand the destruction brought by the hidden injury. Hua! While Xue Wudi was panting, Yi Qinghan took out a large number of world stones and the last saturated origin holy stone, a level 12 dragon fairy grass. Rumble, rumble, rumble. The blood in Yi Qinghan's body began to boil. Every pore on his body opened up as he desperately devoured the power of the world and the power of the origin sacred stone. He actually swallowed the dragon immortal grass in one gulp. These treasures were enough to kill a few pseudo-sector lords. However, they couldn't kill Yi Qinghan. They weren't even enough for him to absorb. He was like a bottomless pit. Damn it, where did this demon come from? The energy in his body is too terrifying. Moreover, the way he uses energy is the same as Sector Lord's. Is he really a Sector Lord's soul? Xue Wudi was flustered. He didn't want to continue fighting anymore. However, he couldn't hold back his anger. Just as Xue Wudi was hesitating, Yi Qinghan devoured all the energy in the origin holy stone and world stones. The saturated origin holy stone quickly turned into dust and dissipated in the air. Yi Qinghan kept berserk. With a wave of his hand, the stone sword appeared in his hand. Xue Wudi, if you can withstand the sixth sword, it's your win. You can kill me or torture me as you wish. Yi Qinghan gripped the stone sword tightly and mobilized the power of the world in his body. The space and time in the Snow Country's divine world were distorted, and the laws and origin were also stirred up by Yi Qinghan's forceful mobilization. The shrill sound of wind whistling could be heard from afar, it was extremely terrifying. The fifth sword had already caused Xue Wudi's world to shake and his soul to be damaged. The sixth sword's power was 100 times stronger. It would definitely be terrifying. Xue Wudi's pupils constricted. He took a deep breath and held the snow god's sword tightly. He roared, since you want to taste my true strength, I'll satisfy you. Chapter 1501. Outside the Saint City, the world was covered in snow. The two experts were facing each other 1,000 meters away. They were both gathering their strength. This battle would be decided by this move. If they couldn't resist it, they would die. If they could resist it, Yi Qinghan would be finished. Heaven and earth rumbled unceasingly. The laws danced chaotically, forming many ancient divine beasts. As long as they could survive, it would be better than 1,000 years of bitter cultivation. Ren Huangyi was watching, and so were Ji Gu and Zhu Wuxin. The female silver snake cultivator suddenly felt enlightened. Her cultivation level was the highest, so she could see things the clearest. Many of the nomological profundities that she did not understand were instantly comprehended. The stone sword was trembling. The world energy was gathered to the limit. Yi Qinghan's world energy was emptied. Even the giant blood dimmed. Its circulation was extremely slow. Xue Wudi's aura had reached the peak. The snow god's sword caused the surrounding temperature to drop to the extreme. The ground was frozen. Snowflakes fell from the void like arrows. They were sparkling with killing intent, making people unable to appreciate their beauty. One sword to flatten the sky, snow suppresses the mountains and rivers. Xue Wudi took the initiative to attack. Under his sword, the sky was in chaos. The earth rumbled, like waves rising and falling. The snow was roaring, suppressing everything. Wang! Yi Qinghan's figure flashed. The feather spirit robe appeared on his body. Divine light shone brightly. This time, Yi Qinghan finally revealed his trump card. Together with the robe, he now had 3 great world weapons. Open! Yi Qinghan's left hand suddenly appeared. Immediately after, the shackles of heaven and earth were broken. He turned into a stream of light and shot towards Xue Wudi. After that, he became one with the sword. With a stomp of his foot, he soared into the sky and followed closely behind Xue Wudi. 6th sword. Falling stars. Boom! With one sword, the world was flattened. Everything was dead silent. Even the wind stopped. Lightning appeared out of nowhere, drowning the Saint City. Shwa! White light with runes rushed out from the stone sword. It was as fast as lightning. The area it covered was so wide that Xue Wudi couldn't dodge it. Boom! 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 South of the Saint City, hundreds of thousands of li were flattened. Under the sector lord, all were ants. Life was no longer life. There was dust everywhere, and the sky was dyed red with blood. Xue Wudi's sword aura was overbearing. The snow god's sword pierced through the saber aura and slashed through berserk with lightning speed. His aura stagnated for a moment, but he twisted his body, stomped on the ground and rushed up again. Whoosh! Bang! With Xue Wudi's support, the snow god's sword tore through everything. A moment later, it stabbed into the stone sword. Buzz buzz. Boom! The two swords trembled, instantly erupting with the strength of 2 pinnacle sector lords. With the 2 of them as the center, shockwaves spread out in all directions. Whoosh! The shockwave from the north rushed towards the holy city with a terrifying aura. It was definitely capable of shattering the army's defensive barrier. Once the defensive barrier was shattered, the entire holy city, including Emperor Yi, would be reduced to dust. Defend, go all out. Ji Gu and Zhu Wuxin were alarmed. This kind of power was not something that humans could contend against. Roar! Emperor Ye's hands plucked the 10 strings of the zither and pressed them down. A 10-colored god light rushed towards the barrier and strengthened its defense. The silver snake female cultivator's god power poured out and turned into her true body. A silver-white long snake that looked like a divine dragon. Holy light covered the front. Jing Wei turned into a 5-colored god bird that emitted 5-colored light. She herself could create an independent barrier that blocked the innermost area. All the border army soldiers gritted their teeth and used up all the god power in their body. The defensive barrier became stronger and stronger, standing proudly in space. Boom boom boom. The shockwave rushed onto the barrier, causing the barrier's light to distort. Wave after wave, heaven and earth roared as the ground was uprooted. Pooh! Bang! The army was the first to bear the brunt. The terrifying impact instantly killed tens of thousands of border army soldiers. Their bodies turned into blood mist and dyed the surroundings red. Roar! The silver snake female cultivator's body exploded and smashed into the back, flattening a large part of the palace. Whine! Bang! The strings of the divine Guqin in Emperor Ye's hand snapped. His frail body was flung out violently, colliding with the silver snake. Immediately after, he rebounded. His face was pale and devoid of color. His soul sank into darkness. The barrier outside was shattered. The only defense left was the Jing Wei. Boom! Screech. After Xue Wudi and Yi Qinghan collided, the last burst of power sent the two flying. The bones and flesh of their hands were shattered. An ear-piercing sound resounded through the sky. It shook everything within 100,000 miles. Even the stones were shattered. A large number of border army soldiers in the sacred city were shattered. They lost more than half of their soldiers. That was a total of 5 million people. Whoosh! The last shockwave swept past Yi Qinghan's body and rushed towards the sacred city. Yi Qinghan's pupils shrank. Emperor Yi was still in the sacred city. The Jing Wei was also there. Once the shockwave reached the sacred city, the two of them would definitely die. Zhong Quan. Go. Yi Qinghan had no strength left. However, his soul could still contact Zhong Quan. Zhong Quan pierced through the sky and appeared outside the sacred city. He released a burst of world energy. Bang! Yi Qinghan fell to the ground. The stone sword in his hand was also thrown out by him, blocking outside the holy city. His soul had almost fainted. After this sword attack, all of his world's energy had been exhausted. Only his freakish physical body was left with the power to fight. Whine! Zhong Quan and the stone sword blocked the sacred city. They formed an impenetrable barrier that blocked the shockwave. Otherwise, the entire sacred city would have been wiped out. Boom! Xue Wudi was in a miserable state. His body flew backward and hit the ground. The friction created a ditch. His old body was dim. The snow god's sword in his hand was stabbed into the ground. He slid a few thousand meters. Although Yi Qinghan no longer had the power of the world, his physical body was still abnormal. However, Xue Wudi was not so lucky. He had less than 1,000th of his strength left in his body. In order to conserve energy, he did not dare to use the power of the world to stabilize his body. Ka ka ka. Yi Qinghan's bones trembled. He clenched his iron fist and punched the ground, causing his body to shoot up. Xue Wudi. Let's see if your body is stronger than mine. Yi Qinghan's aura was fierce. He started to run toward Xue Wudi. Xue Wudi knew how abnormal Yi Qinghan's body was. The remaining 1,000th of his world energy could not compete with Yi Qinghan's body. He turned around and wanted to escape. Boom! Yi Qinghan flew up. He relied on the explosive power of his body to kick Xue Wudi's back. Whoosh! Xue Wudi ran far away, leaving his back to Yi Qinghan. After being kicked, his body turned into a stream of light and flew to the ground. Boom! The moment Yi Qinghan landed, he rushed up again. His foot came down from the sky and kicked Xue Wudi, who was lying in a pool of blood. The dignified sector lord was in a sorry state. He wanted to use the momentum to get up. However, Yi Qinghan did not give him the chance. He stepped on his head and smashed him into the ground. Bang bang bang. Yi Qinghan's fists rained down on Xue Wudi. His flesh was lacerated. His iron fist was stained with the blood of the sovereign. Chapter 1502. Outside the holy city, it was a scene of devastation. Yi Qinghan was bathed in the supreme blood, and his entire body was covered in it. His fists rained down on Xue Wudi's head and back, causing the latter's body to distort and his bones to break. Ah! Damn it! Suofeng! You! Ah! You betrayed your master! Xue Wudi roared and struggled, but he couldn't break free from Yi Qinghan's iron bones. He was beaten to a pulp. Boom! Xue Wudi rushed up, but Yi Qinghan smashed him back into the ground. Over and over again, Xue Wudi was finally exhausted. Yi Qinghan was also exhausted. He could only hold Xue Wudi's head and pin him to the ground. He was so tired that he couldn't even speak. Both of them were covered in blood. Both of them were seriously injured. Hoo hoo hoo. The sound of heavy breathing spread far and wide, echoing in the air. In the sacred city, the city walls were flattened. Countless people were killed by the shockwaves. There were also countless people who were seriously injured. There were more than 1 million people. The rest of the people were only slightly injured. Even the elite guards who were guarding the enchantment were exhausted and lying in a pool of blood. Emperor Yi struggled a few times but couldn't stand up. At this moment, no one could help Yi Qinghan. Even if the realm army was awake, they couldn't kill the realm lord. Even if Xue Wudi was seriously injured and didn't have any world energy left, he couldn't be killed by ordinary people. Only the realm lord could kill the realm lord. The only thing they could rely on now was God. Let's see who would recover first, Yi Qinghan or Xue Wudi. Yi Qinghan and Xue Wudi had a ferocious expression. They pressed each other to the ground and fought until they were exhausted. They didn't even move. Yi Qinghan's iron arm grabbed Xue Wudi's neck and almost broke it. Xue Wudi used his remaining strength to hold on to Yi Qinghan's arm to reduce the pressure. The two were in a deadlock. Time slowly passed, and Ji Gu finally recovered. He slowly walked towards Yi Qinghan and Xue Wudi with a long spear in his hand. His eyes were filled with seriousness. At this moment, getting close to two terrifying existences was definitely a matter of life and death. As long as the two of them used a little bit of strength, the aftermath of a realm lord's attack would be able to destroy a non-first lord existence. Don't get close. Even if you go over, you can't kill him. If you want to kill the realm lord, you have to destroy his soul. With your cultivation, even if the realm lord's soul is in a weakened state, it's not something you can destroy. The elite guard opened his eyes and immediately warned him. Ji Gu immediately stopped and gazed into the distance as if both of them were dead. The moonlight shrouded this dangerous place. After an unknown number of hours, the two of them finally moved. Everyone stared with their eyes wide open. A cold smile appeared on Yi Qinghan's handsome face. With a flip of his body, he completely suppressed Xue Wudi. Then, he grabbed Xue Wudi's neck with both hands and lifted him up. Xue Wudi stared at Yi Qinghan angrily. He tried to pry open Yi Qinghan's iron arm but he couldn't. Both of them recovered some of their energy but Xue Wudi was helpless. He didn't have a chance. Yi Qinghan lowered his voice and said, "How does it feel to be defeated by your own people?" They stared at each other with eyes filled with hatred. Xue Wudi had a reason to suspect Yi Qinghan's true identity but his neck was grabbed and he couldn't speak. He could only use his soul to communicate, "You thief, you can't kill me. You can destroy my body but you can't stop my soul from leaving. I'll give you one more chance. Yi Qinghan looked at the old and tired Xue Wudi and smiled evilly. If you have the guts, give up your body. If you want to cultivate back, you won't be able to return to your peak in a few million years. After a few million years, I'll have flattened the 9 worlds. When you return, you'll be my slave. Xue Wudi couldn't bear to give up his body and struggled madly. Bang! Crack! Yi Qinghan's kick landed on Xue Wudi's leg, breaking it instantly. Ah! Xue Wudi screamed. Crack! Crack! Yi Qinghan forced Xue Wudi to give up on his physical body. His soul was not strong enough to kill Xue Wudi, so he could only destroy his physical body. Pieces of his bones were ripped out. These were all true realm bones. However, in front of Yi Qinghan's monstrous physical body, they seemed to be unable to withstand a single blow. Sua Feng! You'll regret this. Xue Wudi roared. No, I won't regret it. If you don't give up your body today, I'll rip your bones off one by one, Yi Qinghan said coldly. Xue Wudi's eyes were cold. He grabbed Yi Qinghan's arm and tried to use his last bit of divine power to pry open Yi Qinghan's fingers. Crack! 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 The two were wrestling. Yi Qinghan's hand was slowly loosening, but then it tightened again. He didn't give Xue Wudi any chance. Yi Qinghan's veins were bulging. He wanted to break Xue Wudi's neck. Xue Wudi's face was red and his eyes bulged. He was in great pain. His soul was gradually affected by his body and he almost fainted. If he didn't leave his body, his soul would die. Screech! Xue Wudi's soul broke out of his body and let out an unwilling roar. He wanted to crush Yi Qinghan into pieces. Ah! Xue Wudi launched a soul attack. He roared and rushed out in all directions. Whing! Whing! Yi Qinghan's soul seemed to have suffered a heavy blow. His mind was buzzing and his eyes were bloodshot. However, it didn't affect him much. Roar! Hua! Zhongquang and the stone sword roared again. They were wary of the border army behind them. They released a divine light screen and separated the southern part of the city. Although the two great boundary items couldn't be compared to a true sector lord, it was hard for Xue Wudi's soul to break through the defense after leaving his body. Regretfully, Xue Wudi's attack was filled with hatred, but he wasn't able to kill anything. As for the body, it was directly taken away by Yi Qinghan. This was the body of a world overlord. No matter how useless it was, it still had powerful blood and chi energy. If used well, it might even become a third clone. Xue Wudi had lost his body. Even if he wanted to steal another body, he would have to find a suitable one. Even if he found one, he would have to cultivate slowly to recover. By the time he recovered, Yi Qinghan would have become a sector lord. He wouldn't have the power to take revenge. I will be back. Xue Wudi ran. He didn't run to the great wilderness to seek help from the other sector lords. Instead, he ran to the north. If Xue Wudi went to look for the 6 realms masters in his soul state, the 6 realms masters would not hesitate to devour his soul and use it for themselves. Yi Qinghan turned around and looked at the flattened city. He didn't feel sad at all. This wasn't the great wilderness. It was the saint city of the snow country. He didn't expect Xue Wudi to flatten it himself. If he knew that the so-called Sua Feng was the desolate lord, he would vomit blood. Yi Qinghan stepped into the ruins and saw countless people dying. Half of the border army was lost. There were only 5 million soldiers left. Most of them were injured. He couldn't help but sigh. It was already so difficult to defeat one. If the other 6 returned, would there be any room for struggle? At this moment, the divine bird brought Luo Bufan and more than 10 supreme gods from afar. Master! I have returned victorious. If there's anything you need help with, don't hesitate to ask." The divine bird came over with a wicked smile. Looking at the ruins of the imperial city and the hundreds of thousands of miles of land that had been razed to the ground, it sucked in a breath of cold air. It couldn't imagine what kind of disaster this place had suffered. You're tuning in to the Han Li's Wuxia Adventures YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support, and don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.